OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Yeah, you're welcome to OTB AM. We have a packed show today. Shamrock Rovers fresh from their victory last night. I was in Tala among 7,000 fans to see them progress beside rather moderate Hibernian side and set up a big Europe for them. We have some big interviews lined up today in the GA and soccer world, and we have Eoin Sheahan, who is fresh from Adair Manor. How are you, Eoin?
Good, Johnny. What's the crack?
What is going on? What part of the world are you in?
I'm back home in Kerry now. We're doing a road show tonight before the big game on Sunday, so from Adair Manor to here, and we'll be in Tralee tonight, myself and Aisling, chatting to the likes of Darragh O'Canada and Jason Sherlock before Sunday. And I was going to say the big one, but you would obviously argue that Saturday is the main one this weekend.
Aisling was in Tala last night. She's had a busy time, but so have you in Adair Manor. Though the word is you didn't actually get to interview golfers, just sort of normal people.
Wasn't allowed, Johnny. My expertise wasn't allowed to reach into the world of those actually swinging a club. It turns out that was the job of Nathan and Joe. But they got their moment. They got their Jordan Spieth moment, right? That's what we all went for.
Tell us about your interviews.
Well, I guess you probably would have maybe seen a few of them over the last few days. I guess the likes of Alan Hansen and John Kiley and those amateurs who were playing alongside the pros over the last few days. And yeah, everybody there just seemed to be having a pretty good time. It was Sander Schauffele who actually ended up winning the whole thing in the end. He was the leader going into day two. I'm not sure if there was a whole pile of people there to try and see who would actually come out on top. I think there was only one man that people were there predominantly to see, and that was Tiger. Of course, yes. And Tiger was kind of moseying around in his buggy again yesterday. Midway through his press conference, there was interrupted by the beeping of the reversing golf cart, reversing right up to the stage on which he was speaking. So that has been kind of the situation around Tiger, how he's been able to be transported around this golf course, because there is this feeling that, how much more will anybody get to see of this guy, let alone people in Ireland. So I think that probably increased the excitement over the last couple of days, and that was the show. It didn't steal the show. That was the show. It was the Tiger week.
What does he look like when he's walking around? Like, is he kind of, what sort of shape's he in?
He is hobbling around. Like, first time you see him, he looks like he's walking with a limp. Not looking like he is walking with a limp. He does need to be driven around the course. Like, obviously he was kind of speaking in the press conference yesterday, just to, again, kind of hammering home just the severity of his latest injuries and the fact that he was just pretty happy to be able to have his own two legs, really. And that wasn't even a joke. Like, he kind of often says things with a bit of a wry smile and sort of, I don't know, embraces the horrors that he often goes through and his kind of comeback. But I think his general sense is, I'm very lucky to have my two legs and to be able to walk around in them, which is a pretty stark thing to hear. And it's gone beyond the point of diminishing returns at this point. It's at the point of, could he potentially walk away after the Open next week? I mean, it's almost like a week-to-week basis every time you see Tiger speak in front of the media at this point.
What's the whole tournament like? 'Cause it seems like a uniquely Irish thing, and the pull of JP McManus is quite staggering. Like, in racing, he's kind of revered as he almost has a philanthropic kind of attitude to racing, that like he has loads of different trainers, that some of whom he probably helps to keep in business because like they're low grade trainers or whatever, and he has like horses spread out all over all these trainers all across Ireland and Britain. Like, so there's obviously, it's a unique event, I guess.
It is. It is kind of bonkers, really, that this is happening on our doorstep, isn't it? Like this collection of players, especially a week after the Irish Open, when there is supposedly an actual competition happening, that the best golfers come for this. Like, it is interesting. I think like Shane Lowry was asked in his press conference yesterday, just how does JP do it? And he said, I don't know how many times I've been asked this question, and I'm still not quite sure. And one of the things that he actually pointed to was that he thinks that of the golfers that are married and have wives, that they get very well looked after. And I presume that's probably his own experience. It's probably the experience of a lot of the golfers that were out on the course, that maybe it is just this perfect slot on the calendar for them to kind of be in I don't want to say holiday mode, but like to be in family mode, before they go to the Scottish Open, before they go to St Andrews, before the second half of the season properly clicks into gear. They can still play with the best. They can still play in front of huge galleries while also making sure their families are well looked after. So that for me probably is a bit of an incentive, and obviously it seems to be something that everybody is in on. Everybody wants to be part of this. It is still mad, and even after being there for 2 days, you still don't quite get over the fact that like you're in Limerick and 9 of the top 10 golfers are there, and there's no kind of like there was no sense that they wouldn't be there. There's no surprise around the place, and the access that people have, that the galleries would have had to those players just to kind of wait by holes, get photos with them, get autographs, whatever it may be. That access is pretty insane as well.
You do feel like there's a slightly Irish element to it. I know we think we're great and all that, and we're a great bunch of lads, but like, I don't know, people probably enjoy coming to Ireland, and maybe there's sort of an ease of access there, and like you just feel like you can maybe let your guard down a little bit, relax. That was kind of my vibe from it anyway. Exactly,
yeah, I think that's pretty true. Like even just from a media standpoint, it's a very... What's the word I'm looking for here? It's a very forgiving atmosphere. Like, I mean, you'll have covered a lot of events, Johnny, and we know for various reasons that in this day and age, it's hard to get access to players. But communications managers, PROs are very protective of those.
Try to manage
people.
The message.
Exactly. Whereas this was a free for all. As long as the golfers themselves are happy, and like, I mean, Bryson and his coach are quite close knit, and if you try to get too close to Bryson, for example, he will literally push you away, and he's like, we're going to the putting green, we're working on our stuff, and that's totally fair. Niall Horan had a load of security around him, you can't get anywhere close to him, but by and large it is a free for all, and if the golfer or the celebrity is happy to chat to you, work away. You don't need to be like sending emails trying to book interview time or anything like that. And what you have is situations like Nathan actually getting face-to-face time with Jordan Spieth, somebody who deserves a restraining order against Jordan Spieth actually getting time with Jordan Spieth. That's kind of the outcome here. So it's very unique from a media standpoint as well.
I don't care much for golf, but like your interviews, Alan Hansen, I mean, evoking a lot of memories of match today. Even before the game last night, Life of Riley comes on in Tala, and like a nostalgia overload about the goal of the month music and all that, and saw the Lightning Seeds actually play in Leopardstown recently. A lot of nostalgia coming to mind, and then I was thinking of Alan Hansen and, you know, growing up watching Match of the Day and like not winning anthem with kids, and you met him.
Yeah, and like, I mean, this is one of those situations where you don't see him on television all that much anymore. Him being on TV is not a normal thing. It is a nostalgic thing. It's particularly nostalgic. Even for me, I think maybe our levels of nostalgia maybe a little bit different, or our areas of nostalgia. But I think maybe one of our crossover nostalgic points might be Hansen. I think just one of those people who was consistently on our televisions, regardless of what age you were.
Alan rather than the band, obviously.
Well, yes.
Yeah. So it's a bit too early for bad jokes. Like when you do the OTB AM shift, it's like, because the taxi driver started talking to me straight away at 6:30, and I was like, I think I'm going to go for a nap when I go home. He's like, oh, well, when you say that, it's probably true. This shift is a bit more difficult on.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Then again, you get a good run of the day.
You do get a good run today.
There's so many different activities, especially during the summer, you can partake in. So, I think we should be appreciative of having this opportunity to be up and speaking to the nation at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely. So tell me about Hansen anyway. What was he like as a bloke? Did he come across the same way? Was he the Alan Hansen of old? Has he aged? And so on and so forth.
Yeah. Like he seems like an absolute gent. I mean, if you watch the interview, he is trying to get away from me at all points during the interview. Like he's sitting down on the wall, and every answer he is standing up while I try and get one extra question in. And like, I mean, he seems to be pretty positive about the Mo Salah news. He doesn't have any plans to go back into punditry. He wouldn't comment on who his favourite pundit is. He's a tall man. He's still in good shape. And yeah, they're my cliff notes from the Liverpool great that is Alan Hansen. He could still do a job on the Match of the Day couch. Let's just put it that way.
And
I reckon.
You spoke to Martin O'Neill as well.
Did actually, forgot about that. Martin O'Neill just kind of passing by, caught him maybe a little bit unawares. Just again, he wouldn't really kind of speculate on whether or not he was planning to go back into management or anything like that. Wouldn't say if he misses football, but it seems that he thinks Stephen Kenny's doing an okay job as Ireland manager. That he's kind of like he suggested that he needs to stay strong in his convictions when it comes to his philosophy and his style of football. And like, I know that there was like quotes around before the last game. It was maybe after the Armenia game, so somewhere in the middle of that mega international break last month, that he was saying that maybe he'd be under a little bit of pressure. I definitely got maybe a bit of a softer tone off him, that he'd like to see him do well. He'd like to see this style of play work out, but he does need to stay strong and to believe in what he's doing.
I was relegated to the media kind of like. I don't know, the substitutes bench in Tallaght. Even in Tallaght Stadium, I wasn't deemed worthy of the actual media area. So I was put into the overspill, which meant that Stephen Kenny was actually sitting like 2 seats in front of me. And like, it was mad. He's just like, talk about a man of the people. I think one kid came up to him for like a photograph, and that was grand. But then he was just like completely left to his own devices, and like just relaxed, enjoying the game, stayed for most of it. Kind of vaguely celebrated the Shamrock Rovers goals. And you have to remember, on as well, he keeps going back to Tallaght, and like Tallaght has a lot of like good memories for him as Dundalk manager, but bad memories. His nadir as a manager was when he was the Shamrock Rovers boss. Left probably in a bad way, like I'd say mentally. You know, it was not a job that went well. He inherited a dressing room maybe that like they weren't his players or whatever, and it was a bruising experience. And I think like you look at Stephen Kenny in front of you last night and think like, you were in Tallaght before and you were going nowhere as a manager, and now you're the Ireland manager. And it is you do kind of think like it's actually an example of what you can do if you build from like setbacks.
Yeah. What was last night like in general? Was the place absolutely hopping?
Well, so I was actually like a professional journalist, in the sense that I arrived at 6:30 last night, and Aisling O'Reilly being there like was a sign that this was big, and everyone was just congratulating Aisling on her recent engagement. She was almost like a star of the show, despite the fact that she goes to very few League of Ireland games. So it was like, this is a little bit, Aisling puts her hands to so many sports now, was like, this is a little bit different. Our media here, like, who would normally be here, but the thing was, on, it was like 7,000 people at the game, and like, this is just becoming habitual in Tallaght now. And like, when I got the bus home, you get the feeling that Shamrock Rovers, after their nomadic kind of existence, that Shamrock Rovers had like a big following, but now they kind of have a Tallaght following as well. So they have kids who like grew up in Tallaght and the surrounding areas who go to see Shamrock Rovers, and like, there's a really good vibe to the place. You feel like you're at a football event. It was like, the only thing missing was the Champions League music, which wasn't played beforehand, but they've given themselves a serious chance here. Like, they were missing Jack Byrne, Danny Mandroy, who's obviously leaving, Graham Burke, three of their biggest marquee forward players. They still won 3-0. Rory Gaffney from Tuam, star of the show, probably should have gotten sent off, but they've given themselves a real chance now, and they should be in action in Europe for like until the end of August, essentially. Yeah,
nothing's going to happen. Like the Gaffney situation, like he's good to go for the second leg. There's not like a sort of CCCC that's doing here.
CCCC. I don't think so. And I was like, as the point was made, I mean, I'm not a fan of VAR, but this was actually mad. So there was a small Maltese contingent, like slightly to my left, and they were apoplectic that Gaffney didn't get sent off. That's such as my understanding, anyway. And I missed the incident, and then my brother was text me, he should definitely have been sent off. But there was a real like kind of the real moments between the Maltese fans and some of the Shamrock Rovers fans. The stewards had to come over, then the Gardaí had to come over, and the Maltese fans were like, we are the visitors here, why are you not nice to us, effectively? And it did get slightly out of hand for a couple of minutes, but then when you see the replay back, you can see why.
Right. Good set of fans, the Hibernians. Like,
yeah.
Would you like to kind of welcome them back and make a trip maybe over there one day?
Like, is Malta the sort of place you'd go to? It's like quite hot, like touristy, small. I'm sure it's quite nice, but like, wouldn't be sort of necessarily mad on the list, mad high in the list. Like,
what about the Malta national anthem?
I actually don't know. I was thinking of this yesterday. I don't know the Maltese national anthem. Maybe I'll have to recap on that. But let's talk football, actually. I'm getting notes here. I have to get a coffee in, but let's talk about Kerry. Your prediction on Kerry, this is straightforward, Owen. Kerry win.
I'm not sure about that. Like, I don't know what sort of information you're being fed that would suggest that.
Conor Callaghan, obviously.
Yeah.
Like
do we know that?
The rumours aren't great, and you watch the game defensively against Cork in the first half. I thought this Dublin team just does not look what it was, And I think Kerry are just going through the motions. Discuss.
Yeah, but a team going through the motions isn't necessarily a team that's going to win an All-Ireland semi-final. And I think that criticism has been kind of labelled or levelled at them, I should say, after the quarter-final, that maybe they weren't looking amazing that day, and maybe they are just going through the motion. I don't know. I think there's just so much secrecy when it comes to these sort of things in the build-up. And I think that the team news is of such importance that it would actually be foolish to definitively say who's going to win on Sunday unless you actually see proof or get full news of who's going to play. Because if Con doesn't play, I think Kerry will win. If Clifford doesn't play but Con does, Dublin will win. If they both play, it's going to be a very close game and Kerry might edge it, I think. If Con is out, I think the most significant possible team news that could come out is that Con's not playing. I think he's more important to Dublin than Clifford is to Kerry. And
really?
Of course he is. I'm not saying he's a better player, but who comes in for David Clifford if he's out? Killian Spillane, who has the experience of banging one past Stephen Cluxon in the 2019 final, who's an absolutely outstanding corner forward. Who comes in if Conor O'Callaghan's out? That bench for Dublin this year has been their weakness. Starting 15, you can maybe make a case that they're better than Kerry, and that might be the reason why they beat Kerry this weekend, is because their starting 15 is just better, and they have a big enough lead to be able to withstand any sort of drop off from the bench. But I think that if you take Con out of the team, and the importance that their open play, forward play is based around him, I think that would be a bigger loss to them than losing Clifford would be to Kerry, because Kerry have other options.
Indeed, they do. Can't wait for it. Obviously, we have a cracking show, which I'll actually mention now in terms of what's coming up. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We start with Emma Byrne. The women's Euro starting in front of, I think, the guts of 75,000 fans tonight. So massive time for women's football, and showcase across TV over the tournament. 8:10, Andy Mitten. Oh yeah, more Ronaldo chat, Man United chat. The taxi driver was very keen to talk about Ronaldo this morning, and it's just the show goes on at Man United. Andy Mitten, I can already hear him just kind of giving out about what's happening at Manchester United. That's at 8:10. What is going on ahead of their Asian tour? 8:30 we have the sports pages. Very, very busy morning. Lots of celebration of Rory Gaffney and Shamrock Rovers win. 8:40 we have the sports news coming up. That's with Cathal Mullaney. 8:50 Kevin Walsh is back in the house. You might remember Kevin was on before the Galway Armagh game, and he gave a very good appraisal. Thought it'd be close. I think he went for Galway, and he was right. And we'll talk to him about the Derry game coming up. Diarmuid O'Sullivan, the Rock in the house, 9:10. This is a hell of a coup. Cork obviously unveiling their new manager. And what does Diarmuid make of the new setup? Has he reflections on the Kingston reign? And what was that tweet about? Let's get to the nail of it. What was he trying to get at? And if you haven't seen the tweet, stay on till 9:10. Then we'll have some OTB reaction at 9:30. And that is Wally Green, a fascinating guest in last night's show, who revealed that ping pong saved his life. And that is all coming up. Tune in to Off the Ball each day this week, where thanks to Sports Ireland Campus, we've daily prizes of €200 vouchers that can be used towards membership at their elite gym facility, and pitch rentals for your team, kids sport academies and camps, or a family visit to Aquazone Water Park. Plus an amazing overall prize of a €1,000 voucher, a money can't buy behind the scenes tour, and a sports team fitness testing session by an experienced strength and conditioning coach. It's all thanks to Sports Ireland Campus, the home of Irish sport from beginners to high performance, and everyone in between. Here we go. I believe we are joined by Emma Byrne now. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning. How are you?
What time of the world is it where you are?
It is 10 to 9. We're an hour ahead.
You are in Spain?
I am in Barcelona, yes.
Beautiful. Tell me about this tournament. So I was looking at the kind of expectations last night. It's actually very, very open in terms of 4 or 5, maybe even 6 teams you give a realistic chance to. England starting in front of massive support against Austria. Northern Ireland involved as well. See that brilliant Swedish team that we all know so well from Ireland's World Cup qualifiers. This is a great time to be alive for women's football.
Absolutely, and it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to this year. It's just been getting better and better every year, and this year I feel like it's even more exciting because of the fact it's so open. Can't really pinpoint any particular team to win it because there are so many teams. And, everybody usually would go for the likes of Germany or whatnot after them, holding the title so many times. But it's definitely open play for everyone, and I think it's going to be an absolutely brilliant tournament.
How much is home advantage an advantage, do you think?
I think it's a massive thing, particularly for England, as, the sport has been growing so much and they've been building the momentum up to this. I mean, they've been basically planning for this for the last 3 years, and they've been doing a great job. And, the crowds have been picking up at the home games in the WSL. And I think they're absolutely packed out. As you know, they're selling out the stadiums, few complaints that they're not playing in the bigger stadiums. And I just think it's going to be great. Everybody's supporting England in England, obviously, and they're going to be there, at the games, building that atmosphere. And I think it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere all around.
Yeah, I think Boris Johnson probably needs some feel-good vibes. He might latch himself on what's going on. And it's just, I guess, this is probably a chance him as well for people who don't necessarily watch women's football day in, day out. They get a chance now because you can't escape this. It's going to be on your TV screens. You're going to get wrapped up in it, and the progress that women's football has made in recent years, this surely brings it on to another level again.
Yeah, it does, and it does every year. And I just think that the fact it's in England as well, supposedly the home of football, and the FA
supposedly.
are really, supposedly. And the FA are they've pumped so much money into it, into the league, into the national team. I just think it's perfect timing for women's football, and women's football is at that point where it's just gaining so many supporters. It's very visual. It's in everyone's houses at the moment. And it just is going to kick on from this. I think it's going to be just absolutely massive. And as you said, I think people who haven't watched it that much before, I think it's going to gain even more supporters. And, just even walking around, I was in Manchester last week by Manchester City Stadium, and just the advertisements, they've posters of all the different players just when you're driving up the main street up to the city campus. And it's just already the atmosphere is brilliant, and they're doing a great job. They really are advertising it, yeah. Yeah,
I know, if say Northern Ireland are involved, but if Vera Pauw's team was involved in this, I think there'd be massive interest in the Republic. And as you say, about Tala, the growth of Tala Stadium, a lot of the chat last night was about the women's internationals in Tala and how cool that has become, and the relationship between the players and the fans in Tala. And obviously we can cheer on Northern Ireland or whoever in this tournament, but this would be massive had Ireland qualified.
It would, and it's what we need, really. We need to qualify for a major tournament to kick on from where we are. And it's in a good place at the moment. Got a really nice fan base. When you go to the games, there's a really nice feeling, and really feel like the fans are behind them. But qualifying for a major tournament is on a different level, and it's success breeds interest, and we need to build that. And for us to do that, we do need to kick on and qualify, and that's pressure on the girls. They realise that as well.
You mentioned England there a moment ago, Emma, and I think that's kind of a perfect example of pressure and how hype has got to teams in the past when it comes to their men's teams. Is there any danger that becomes the case with their women's team this summer? And even just when it comes to expectation, if you're looking across the previews ahead of the tournament, there's a lot of people picking this team out as potential winners. All of the Guardian's writers, bar one, are predicting that England will reach this final. I think when you look at the last couple of years, going out and getting Serena Wiegman in to succeed Phil Neville looks like an outstanding piece of forward planning and kind of a note of intention that they're out to win this tournament. How does that balance itself out with the expectation that is obviously going to hit fever pitch over these next few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it is pressure. It's pressure for the team themselves, that they're able to handle that pressure. That's what they're there for. And, it's, I don't know who said, I think it was Billie G. King that said that it's a privilege to be under that pressure type of thing. It is typical of the press, the English press, to build them up, and hopefully they will succeed, because I think that has a knock-on effect for Irish football as well, because we're so close to them and we channel into their TV and their media. So I'm hoping they do well for our sakes as well. But it is a lot of pressure for them, and being at home, it is an advantage, and they're going to enjoy that, and in the atmosphere and in the stadiums. But it is more pressure, and I know personally, I preferred playing away from home, just being away from my usual surroundings, so I can really focus. So some of the girls will enjoy playing at home, and then others would have thrived playing away from home. But that's normal. That's all in the game. And, these girls have been playing a very long time. They have a lot of support behind them. They know how to deal with it. They have psychologists coming into the tournament. And, of course, they're physically in shape. So now it's just about how they perform mentally. And they've worked on that a lot, the English girls particularly.
Do you expect any curveballs in terms of how they approach this competition? Like Emma was just saying off air that Leah Williamson, for example, actually plays as a midfielder for England as opposed to the centre-back that we probably are more familiar with her playing for Arsenal. Does Wiegman tend to mix things up when it comes to their club position when they put on the white of England?
I definitely think Leah would be the one that she's not sure of where to play. I think Wiegman I'm not sure if she knows her first 11, which is a little bit, would be kind of worrying. But Leah playing in midfield, it just gives the midfield that extra, solidarity, the defence in midfield. I think she's very, very good in there. They need a very good holding midfielder because of the midfielders they have, very attacking minding. So they need that anchor midfielder. However, going into a big tournament and you're not playing in that position week in, week out is really difficult, and you do get found out against these big teams. So it's a really difficult decision for her. And personally, I wouldn't put Leah Williamson in midfield in that holding role just because she doesn't play in there week in, week out. It's really difficult because they don't actually have a great player to play in there, and they've got fantastic attacking midfielders. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her in there as the holding midfielder, but basically she'd be playing as a third centre back, and she'd be sitting right in front of those whoever she decides to play centre back as well, which is another decision.
Yeah, well, let's cut to the chase here in terms of the groups and expectations. So England, Austria, Norway, Northern Ireland, Group 1. Kenny Shields, the Northern Ireland boss, obviously ex-Derry City in the League of Ireland. Lots of interest there in terms of cheering him on. England raging hot favourites in the first game tonight. You can imagine the atmosphere in front of 70,000 fans. Is this a question of England winning the group and what finishes second, or how do you weigh it up?
I think, Norway actually are my team that I think are going to be quite dangerous and a team that we're not talking about enough. So I actually think Norway are going to top this group. I think it's going to be a battle up there for Norway and England. Fortunately, I don't think Northern Ireland are going to challenge them just because it's their first tournament and the lack of experience and etc. But I actually think Norway are going to do really, really well in this tournament. I think they've players going into the tournament that are on form. As you know, Ada Hegerberg has come back. She was absolutely excellent in the Champions League final and seems to have a point to prove, or she looks like she does. So I actually think Norway are going to be the surprise team in this tournament, and I think England are really going to struggle against them.
How good is Hegerberg?
She's excellent. I mean, she's just a fantastic forward, and for me, it was a shame that we haven't seen her in the last few years. And it's something that, we want to see the best players at the tournaments. And obviously she was fighting for a cause that we know very, very well. But it's great to see her back. And I wasn't sure how she was going to return because it's really difficult. Plus, she was coming back from a very serious injury, a lot of knockbacks in that injury. But in the Champions League final, she was just completely on fire. Her work rate was phenomenal. She was that the fox in the box type of player. She still has that. She's very, very sharp. And of course, playing with players with the Norway, with their attacking team, with Brighton and Graham Hansen, she's going to get a lot of balls in that area. And she's the player that you want in there to put them away. So yeah, I think Norway are going to do really, really well.
So you're predicting Norway first, England second in that group?
Yes.
Pretty much.
A lot of people won't agree with that, but I probably won't be liked very much, but that's the way I see it.
So the big news in Group B is the Putellas injury, which so this is a massive blow for Spain. Germany, Denmark, Spain, Finland, which presumably is something of a group of death here.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as they were drawing those names out, I was like, oh, that's the group you don't want to be in. I mean, Germany, it doesn't matter what form they're in a bit of a transitional period at the moment, but you never write them off. They're still really difficult. They're very physical and direct and definitely going to cause Spain a problem. The fact Alexia Putellas is injured is a massive, massive blow for Spain. Obviously, the Ballon d'Or winner. She's a fantastic midfield player. She's basically the engine of the Spanish team. They're going to be a little bit different, you know. And
do they change the way they play now, like slightly because she's not there, or do they stick to their principles?
No, they'll stick to their principles. But when you have a player in there that links up the defence and the forward players, like the way Alexia does, and the type of style that they play, it's really important to have that player. But for me, it depends on who Jordi Vilda actually puts in there. And I think that's going to be a manager's decision, can make or break that. And I really hope that he makes the right decision, because again, Spain are in that cusp, that moment where they need to kick on as a national team as well. And there's only one player that can play in there for me, and that has to be Alaya Chandri, which you might not know. But she actually has signed for Man City this year. Mm-hmm. She's a centre-back, a bit similar to Leah Williamson, as in centre-back, and she pushes into midfield sometimes when the Spanish team are short of that holding midfield place. But she's an excellent, excellent holding midfielder as well. And I just think if she plays in there, it allows Bonmati to push on, which is very, very important for Spain. Whereas if they put the likes of Claudia Pina in there, who's an attacking player, Bonmati has to drop back. And that's a massive loss as well. So you're talking about two big gaps in the Spanish midfield. Whereas if you put a Chandri in there, it allows the attacking players to stay higher up, which I think is very, very important for the way the Spanish team play.
So Spain start off at 5 p.m. in a couple of days' time at Stadium MK against Finland. What's the vibes like actually over there? Like, is there much of a buzz around the Spanish team? Barcelona obviously being quite unique in that regard, but like, is there much interest in terms of locally for this, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, the football over here is like religion. Everybody supports them. I remember I was teaching a 72-year-old woman, and I just happened to ask a football question. This is English, by the way, not football. And she knew everything about the Barca team, the national team. I was like, this is so impressive. So everybody is behind the team. Everybody's very educated in football over here. But the fact that Alexia, who is there, they call the queen over here, is injured is a big, you know, there's a sadness type of thing going on over here, and a real disappointment. And I think the hopes of winning kind of lied with Alexia as you know, the best player in the world. And there's some doubt for sure on social media and just chatting to the neighbours and stuff like that. That's all they're talking about is the injury.
Yeah, football is to Spain what Gaelic football is to Kerry on.
That's a fair point. So what did Putellas got injured in a training session, which probably increases the frustration over there a little bit as well, I'd assume, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, they do question the Spanish manager and the decision he makes, and now they're questioning the periodization of training, but you can't protect players like that. You can't wrap them up in cotton wool. And knowing Alexia, there was no way you could ask her to sit out at training or relax, because that's not her personality.
Well, can you imagine like Brian Cody telling the Kilkenny lads in training, like, don't get injured because you've a game coming up? It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. But you know, some players do, you know, stand off a little bit, or they might take it a bit easier, particularly the day before the tournament starts. But Alexia's not that type of player, and that's why she's one of the best. She is the best in the world. But it's just such a shame one day before the girl doesn't get injured. She turned up for the last year's Champions League final with a knee issue, and probably shouldn't have played, but got strapped up, maybe got an injection, and was probably the player of the match. So when I heard she got injured, I was like, I wouldn't believe it, or I didn't think it was as serious, because it happened last year in the Champions League. Obviously, it wasn't as bad of an injury. But when they showed the video of her coming out and the fact she couldn't put any weight on it at all, this was before they said it was an ACL injury. I just thought, no, that's it. It's serious. It's not good. She's not going to be playing in this tournament.
Group C, which looks possibly a shootout between Netherlands and Sweden, Switzerland and Portugal also in it. Lots of Irish interest here. This is a brilliant Swedish team. I think a lot of people will fancy them to win it outright. How do we go?
Yeah, I mean, Sweden are just, again, it's a team that were in transition 3 years ago and have come out the other side and are just looking extremely good, extremely fit. The players themselves individually are on top form, which is very important going into a tournament. And I think that they are extremely dangerous. However, when I watched them play against Ireland at home in Tallaght Stadium, I was going to say Richmond Park, that would bring me back a long time. They didn't seem to have a plan B, and Ireland did very, very well defensively against them. And I feel like if a team sets up well against Sweden and well defensively and can stop the likes of Blackstenius running in behind, I think that Sweden struggle a little bit. And, you know, I know they got to the Olympics finals and they did extremely well, but I just think the Euros are a different kettle of fish and they've got a higher standard of team and more organised. And I think Sweden might struggle a little bit when they need to go to a plan B.
Interesting. Portugal-Switzerland starts off the Lay Sports Village. That's in 3 days' time at 5 p.m. And then later that night, Holland-Sweden. What a massive game. Bramall Lane, July 9th. So that's that's 3 days from now as well, the second game. That brings us to Group D. Belgium, Iceland, France and Italy. Starting off in the Academy Stadium, Belgium playing Iceland, 5 o'clock in 4 days' time. So this group's obviously taking place last. And another fascinating matchups here as well, Emma.
Yeah, I mean, this is France's group for me. Belgium have done really well to qualify. Watched them in a couple of friendlies. They're not going to trouble France with the team that the French have, so strong, such an attacking team. Belgium won't trouble them. Iceland, very resilient team. I think probably one of the best defensive teams in the tournament. So I think they might cause a problem. I don't think they're going to score many goals, but they'll make it difficult. But again, with a team like France that have the players that are extremely good in 1v1 situations, and, you know, we watch the likes of PSG, they can absolutely take you apart with their power and pace up front. I don't think they're going to cause a big problem. Italy, however, again, another team that they show up one day and they look average, and then the next day they look absolutely brilliant. It depends on their players and what mood they're in. If Bonsea plays well and is in form, I think the whole team decide that they can play well. So I think Italy might be the ones to cause a bit of a problem, but not much of a problem that, you know, it's going to hinder France's progress. I think France are going to pretty much walk on through that group. Finally,
just part of you a little bit envious you're not there?
The what, sorry?
Part of you a little bit envious you're not there?
Always when I'm watching, it doesn't matter what tournament or what game I'm watching, I'm always envious I'm not on the pitch. However, you know, it is time, as I said, for Ireland to qualify. I know the girls, they're so close, they're getting closer and closer, and the fact that Northern Ireland have qualified, obviously we're supporting Northern Ireland, we want them to do really well, but it just brings home the fact that we're very, very close and we should be qualifying. It's hard for us not to be there and to be supporting our girls. But, you know, that time's going to come and they just have to enjoy the tournament and enjoy the fact that women's football is totally becoming a massive thing. And there's lots of support for them now to do that. Get the players abroad, get them playing in the WSL, and that's going to happen very soon.
So finally and quickly, your top scorer in the tournament and your winner.
Well, I am going to go for Ada Hegerberg just for the fact that I do think Norway are going to, you know, progress, and I think they're going to do extremely well. I think that Ada Hegerberg's going to be on the penalties as well, which for me is very important in this kind of tournament. But all in all, I think it's going to be France that take the tournament. And I think that they're just too powerful, a lot of pace. They've got very strong players throughout the team, very few weaknesses, which is important. And they have a squad that they can use throughout the tournament again, which is very important for the longevity of the success throughout going through the tournament. So France win, Ada Hegerberg, top goal scorer.
Beautiful, Emma. Thanks a million and enjoy.
Thank you very much. You too. Enjoy it.
A couple of comments coming in. Busy show we have this morning. Just mentioning about Le Tour. Rick Jagger, it's the cobble stage of the Tour de France today. Much watched sport, yeah. So the Tour de France heating up nicely as well. And so what a massive day we have for women's sport being showcased in terms of this Euros. A bit of a Euros like no other, really. OTB AM is brought to you live every morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The Koi Gig Pod returns this week just in time for the start of the UEFA Women's European Championship, which of course starts today in England. Kathleen McNamee and Karen Duggan were on hand to preview the tournament. Northern Ireland kicked their tournament off tomorrow night against Norway, and here is a clip from the latest episode discussing how smaller nations can learn a thing or two from Northern Ireland, including ourselves. The OTB Koi Big Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cabaret FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland national women's team. And we're back with Andy Mitten on Manchester United after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Don't miss a moment of Ireland's tour of New Zealand.
He's charged in direct contact to the head. We've all watched this game for the last 3 years enough to know, well, there's nothing mitigating. I didn't think that there was, despite the fact that Manny's head was down. Barrett didn't need to do that. I mean, that was the red card, surely, wasn't it?
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
I'm a big admirer of Rachel Fairness. I mean, she's so calm on the ball. She's a leader. She's a rock. She'll be, I think, someone that will be driving them on. I think that a lot of the younger players will be looking towards her and how she'll perform in order to kind of take energy from them. I know she's one of the elder statesmen of the team, but they'll need someone like that. And she's had a great year. I mean, promotion with Liverpool. She's one of the longest running professionals in that team. Then you've got the likes of Laura Rafferty at the back, who will play with her heart in her sleeve. I'm sure she'll definitely pick up a couple of yellow cards as we go through the thing. But again, you're going to need someone like that who's willing to do that, make those big tackles and put themselves about if they are going to try and frustrate other teams. And look, you'd love to see someone like McGill pop up with a goal up top and just set the place on fire. You'd love to see a fairy tale story. But when you compare the two squads and just the levels that they're playing at, they're not comparable. And when you look at the Northern Ireland team, the amount of home-based players that they do have in there, it just shows what a credit they are, and that the Northern Ireland FA, the work that they've put into their development. I've read their strategic development plan. It's very well thought out, very well executed now. For the 47th ranked team to make this tournament is absolutely massive. They're the only team outside the top 30 in there. So there's no expectation. They're ranked probably where they are actually on their ability when you look at the amount of players that are playing professionally, but everything they're doing is a step in the right direction. And I think other small nations can learn a lot from what Northern Ireland have done, ourselves included.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Yeah, where would we be without the never-ending carousel of madness at Old Trafford? Andy Mitten from United We Stand will discuss this. And chiefly Cristiano Ronaldo this morning. Just looking at Miguel Delaney's article this morning, Andy, starting off, which I'm just reading from the Independent website here. In Cristiano Ronaldo's talks with Mendes and the representatives' meetings with top clubs, a few points have been made abundantly clear. This is no game, nor is an attempt to leverage Manchester United. Ronaldo just wants to have a chance of winning the Champions League again and is even willing to take a significant pay cut to make it happen. Bless him.
Bless him. I think Manchester United fans, the vast majority, I did a poll on Saturday saying, how would you feel if Cristiano Ronaldo left Manchester United? And results might surprise some people in so much as how many of them wouldn't be that concerned if he left Manchester United. 27,000 people voted. 12% said they'd be happy if he left. 57% said they wouldn't be that bothered, and 31% said they'd be gutted if he did go. So I think that's pretty much how a lot of Manchester United fans are feeling right now. He was a success last season, but issues came with him arriving. The coaching staff had no idea that he was coming. He was thrown upon them at the last minute and accepted. United had to rip up their plans of how they were playing, a style of football which had got United to second in the league, and incorporate Ronaldo. But he was a success. Without Ronaldo, United's season would likely have been even worse last year. In the few highlights that United had last season, Ronaldo was responsible for most of them. Definitely helped the team get out of the Champions League group stage. But I can argue strongly for and against keeping him. If he stays, he'll be cheered as he's always cheered. And if he goes, it will release a huge amount of money. And Manchester United would probably put some of that money into getting a new striker. There's not a lot of number 9s around at the moment. And this is down to Erik ten Hag. What does he want? It's all right, fans talking about what they would do. Fans aren't making the decisions between the player and the manager. And Erik ten Hag is now in charge, and what he wants to do is the most important thing for Manchester United.
Andy says Ronaldo was a success. He was a success in some metrics, but all the other offensive players did not improve. I've made this point before. Ronaldo may himself have done well, but Man United didn't become any better, in my view. So it's like you can see why that poll would be a little bit divisive on.
And Andy, I was kind of wondering, is there a danger to that poll actually is sort of the mood within Old Trafford as well as the mood outside of Old Trafford and in the fan groups, that there are people within Old Trafford who literally just don't know. Like the majority of people on that poll that you mentioned there aren't bothered one way or the other. That can't be the way the club progresses, even if it is a difficult conundrum at the moment. That can't be the way the club progresses if they are unbothered one way or the other, whether or not he stays or goes. You would like to think that Erik ten Hag and his coaching staff have a pretty strong opinion on this and are either planning for a Ronaldo-shaped team next season or are very much planning for one without him. They can't be stuck on the fence here.
You're right. United's view is that he's not for sale and he's got a year left of his contract. Then again, it's easy to say that. If footballers want to leave a club, then they tend to leave the club. 9 years ago, Wayne Rooney wanted to leave Manchester United, and the club did stand firm. Alex Ferguson had gone, and United said, no, you're not going. And he stayed. And he had a really good season that year. But Manchester United were champions when this had happened. United are so far away from that level at the moment. It would be all right if Erik ten Hag was decisive, but it's not just on him either. If he's got a player who's playing games with him, then that muddies the waters further. At the moment, Ronaldo has said that he's missing training this week for family reasons. United are due to fly to Bangkok on Friday for a long tour. I'm going to go on that on Saturday. Game in Liverpool in Bangkok Tuesday. Games in Australia, back to Europe, then to Norway, then to Old Trafford. Then the season starts, and there's a lot of games right at the start. Last year, he told Juventus that he was staying, and a week later, he left the club. Last April, I was in Milan with Manchester United, and a story came out that Ronaldo was going to join Manchester United. And I checked it out and was told there was no truth in it whatsoever, that the story was almost certainly coming from Ronaldo, because he realised that Juventus were willing to let him go. So it's not clear-cut, and nor is the number of people who could afford his wages. From a football perspective, would he improve any of the best teams? And I say teams because individually, as you say, he might still score some great goals. Commercially, he still has incredible value. And that is a factor. It was definitely a factor in Manchester United bringing him back. Commercial revenues, thanks to him, saw a big uptick. Shirts with his name on outsold, shirts of every other player combined. And just going to games last year, I remember walking to Atalanta against Manchester United in Bergamo and talking to two Italians. And I said, "Who are you, Atalanta fans?" So no, we're Cristiano Ronaldo fans. And he's massive. He's absolutely huge. My daughter's 8 years old and asks me more about Ronaldo than any football team. So he's still got huge commercial power. And as a player last year, he had a bit of a slump after Christmas. I think he got 1 goal and no assists in 12 matches. But Ralph Rangnick stuck with him partly because he had to, because he didn't want to be the person who signalled the final chapter in the career of one of the greatest players ever. Ronaldo will absolutely have his perspective. He spoke out last season when he wanted to. In some ways, he's bigger. It's the biggest personality at the club by a long, long way. And you can cash in on that from a commercial perspective, but he also brings problems because when he wants to speak, he speaks. He's a bigger name than the manager. His last 2 managers at Manchester United. If he's not happy, is it good to have someone like that in the dressing room? So I can hit you with 50 arguments for and against keeping Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United or letting him go. Well, I'm not the one making the decision. It's on Eric Ten Hag and him.
If I were Ten Hag, I'd be getting rid of him. I wouldn't care who he joined, whether it was an English club or anyone else. But I suppose the question here is, and this has been alluded to in the press, what are the other players thinking? Because there's an implication that a lot of them actually want Ronaldo to go anyway.
Well, you're asking me to speak for 24 people there, and they all have very different opinions. Some of them think he's the greatest thing ever. They completely look up to him. He's their beacon in the dressing room, and others don't share that opinion. So you had a situation last year where you had cliques within the Manchester United dressing room, and Ronaldo was at the head of one group of players, and with some pretty powerful players around him, people like Bruno Fernandes, Diogo Dalot, some of the Spanish speakers. And it's all right having different groups of players in the dressing room because every dressing room has got little cliques and groups when you're winning. When you're losing, then they tend to rub up against each other. You tend to get leaks coming out. Well, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. And that's when it become really divisive, because I checked stories out last year and think, that's come from a player and that's aimed at going against another player. And that is not an indicator of a healthy dressing room.
Just the stats as well. 2021, 73 goals without Ronaldo. 2022, 57 goals with Ronaldo. And I do wonder, I mean, mortality and age catches up with us all, Andy. You'd imagine he's going to regress slightly into next season. Who would sign him? Like, who wants him? And, like, yeah, who would sign Ronaldo? Given what you're just saying here, you're signing a brand, but you're also signing difficulties.
You're also signing a very good footballer and one who may make you money. Ed Woodward thought he would make Manchester United money. He packaged up the deal and sold it to Joel Glazer as a commercially viable deal when Manchester United had basically spent all the money in the transfer window on Jadon Sancho and on Raphael Varane. I don't think the commercial side of it has been an issue for Manchester United. Indeed, they want to keep him. Did Juventus want to keep him? probably not. Who would buy him now? I still think he'd score a lot of goals in almost every team. But if you look at the teams who are in the last 8 of the Champions League, and he wants to win the Champions League, then they're very much about the collective. So you might get an emergency. If, for example, tomorrow, Karim Benzema got injured and couldn't play for Real Madrid for a year, there might be an example like that where they get Ronaldo because, he can come in and do a job and there's history there. But it's a hard question to answer. He earns that much money that it's a problem. So he would have to take a pay cut.
What's your sense on the likelihood of Chelsea wading into the Ronaldo conversation?
Good question, because they've got a new owner and he seems to be playing real life Football Manager. And maybe he thinks Ronaldo could do a great job and would be great for Chelsea commercially. I don't know what the thinking inside his head is, but my eyebrows have been raised a little bit by some of the goings on at Chelsea. I'd love to know what Thomas Tuchel thinks of his new owner. Maybe they'll walk away happily into the sunset and Chelsea will be fantastic. They're current world champions and things will carry on being great for them. But I don't know. I think Chelsea's losing some good people, but it depends which version of the truth you want to believe. London is attractive to footballers as a place to live. Chelsea have certainly got money. They pay absolute top wages, and they don't stagger those wages either, unlike a lot of top clubs. It's bang, you're getting this every week. A lot of clubs, including Manchester United, heavily incentivize their wages. So I think if Chelsea's new owner wants Ronaldo, then that's a probable. Chelsea wanted Wayne Rooney back in 2013, but Manchester United said, no, you're not going. I think it'd be much more difficult to keep Ronaldo now.
Live comments this morning. Any club that signs Ronaldo now is just a vanity project, and that's from Albie Littlewood, which of course Only Fools and Horses fans will get the reference. I tend to agree with that. And the cool people, Andy, the cool kids of tomorrow, they wear Ericsson on the back of their Man United shirts, not Ronaldo. This is a big story as well.
Well, he's a good player, and if the manager wants him, you've got to back the manager here. United have been too drawn by names and individuals in the last 9 years. And I said a few weeks ago, exaggerating, I said, if Erik ten Hag wants to bring in a player from the Dutch 8th division who nobody's ever heard of, then give him the power to do that. I'm not saying that Malathia, who signed from Feyenoord, is of that level because he had a very good season last year, but very few Manchester United fans have heard of the new left back even a week ago. And it's got to build a team. United have gone down this road of bringing in big name individuals, and everyone's been taken by them, including myself. When Bastian Schweinsteiger signed, I thought, great player, German World Cup winner, Bayern Munich, and he flopped, just as Alexis Sanchez flopped and Radamel Falcao flopped. There's a really strong miss rate for Manchester United's signings. So Ericsson, he'll be welcomed like all signings are. They all benefit from that flush of optimism. And if they're not performing, then pressure builds up very quickly on them individually. There's a lot of hate around from Manchester United fans towards Manchester United players.
Hate?
One who's almost certain to go is Andreas Pereira, going to Fulham. United will probably make £10 million on him. He's not good enough to play for Manchester United every week, but he's a decent footballer and he's a decent lad and he's a hard-working pro. And Manchester United need to be smarter in the sales than they have been.
Just go back Pereira. There. You said the word hate. That just seems very strong, Andy. Like that's and you were watching from afar. Is it that level of kind of festering resentment, hate? You'd even say.
I'd say online hate. Crucially, it's very different inside the stadium at matches. I think the players and the managers feel very supported in real life, but online, you've seen it. You've seen the news stories around it. It's awful, and it's not just Manchester United either. I saw Andre Gomez for Everton announcing that he was back in pre-season training yesterday and got a lot of abuse. And that's someone who's been very open about his mental well-being in the past. So we could talk for 2 hours about social media and the cesspit that a platform like Twitter can be. But when you're at Manchester United, it is so high profile that people are jumping on you and abusing you straight away. You know, one misplaced pass and you're getting abused. It's absolutely ridiculous. So when a team like United lose 6 consecutive away games, that abuse really boils. And yeah, I'd use the word hate, and I'd stand by that.
What about Frankie de Jong? This is fascinating as well. Is this going to happen?
United's understanding, and my understanding, is that Barcelona want to sell him. Erik ten Hag absolutely wants him. I think Frankie de Jong has been almost perfectly happy in Barcelona, living in a city where he wanted to live in for a long time with his partner. Been a good player for Barca. Not a great player. I probably watched him 20 times last year. His best game was against Real Madrid away in that 4-0 win. Xavi likes him. He earns too much money for Barca. He'd have to take a pay cut. So I'm presenting you with the facts there. If you're going to ask me yes or no, I think it's probable that he will leave Barca for Manchester United. I don't know of any other suitors. And I know Barcelona very well. I speak to a lot of people at Barcelona. And I don't know of any other suitors for him at the type of fee that United and Barca have been negotiating for. So there's a lot of brinkmanship around at the moment. Barca are saying, we don't need to sell him. The president, John Laporte, has been pretty strong with that in the last week. Those words could only drive the price of the player up rather than down. Imagine if he said the opposite. Yeah, we want to get rid of him as soon as possible. Then that plays absolutely into Manchester United's hand. But he's the number one target for Erik ten Hag and for Manchester United. I spoke to a lot of coaches in Spain a couple of weeks ago about him, people who view football at a professional level, and they were absolutely glowing about him. I was surprised because I watch him with my own eyes. I can see there's a good player there. And they were saying he can be so much better than he is because he's played in the wrong role at Barca. So if he signed for United, I and many other Manchester United fans would be excited by that.
Give us briefly your starting 11 at the moment for next season as we stand.
As we stand, De Gea, because Henderson's gone. Left back, Luke Shaw. But I'm going oof because there's now 3 left backs there. Yeah. Rafael Varane, Harry Maguire, a new highly motivated Harry Maguire because he had a poor season last year, which was highlighted along with a lot of other players. Right back, difficult one. Dalot, but I'm not watching him in training every day. Central midfield, De Jong, Eriksen, Jadon Sancho.
Everyone is just waiting for whether Ronaldo's in this team or not. Keep going, Andy.
I don't know the answer.
You have 3 more players. You're only at 4-3 at the moment.
A man came up to me the other day. I was covering the Tour de France in Copenhagen, and I quite like getting off football for a little bit because otherwise it just fries your brain.
You need to get off the carousel every hour anyway.
Well, I couldn't because Sky rang me in the UK and said Ronaldo wants to leave. Can you come on TV in 1 hour? I was like, just at the finish line at the Tour de France. And then a man put a camera in my face, a Manchester United fan, and started filming me and said, yes or no, is De Jong coming? Yes or no? Yes or no?
And
I learned a long time not to answer questions like that. When in 2003, a work colleague of my then partner said, David Beckham, yes or no, is he coming to Barcelona? And I said, yeah, he probably is. And then for 3 months later, he was giving me abuse because I was wrong. But was there any advantage to me giving him that answer when I didn't know the full answer to it? Ronaldo, I suspect he will go. And I might be wrong there. I think Marcus Rashford will feature strongly, but he's got to perform because he hasn't been doing. Anthony Martial's another interesting one. Not been performing either. Really poor loan spell at Seville. And then the old favourites, McTominay, Fred. Ten Hag has probably not decided. I'm almost certain he's not decided who his starting 11 is going to be against Brighton in a month's time. And he's got a month to work through that. What I am hearing is very good things from the training ground about him on the grass, about his directness, about the drive. And That's after a week or two from multiple sources. After a week or two of Ralph Rangnick, I was not hearing that. And when I communicated that, Manchester United fans just didn't want to hear that. No, tell us the version of the truth we want to hear. But with Ten Hag, I'm hearing good stuff. I heard fantastic stuff about United's last Dutch manager, 2013. And Louis van Gaal had made a wonderful impression, and pre-season was fantastic, and Real Madrid were destroyed. And United staffers were going up to Van Gaal saying, thanks for bringing this club back. Thanks for bringing the spirit back. And then the team lost the opening day at home to Swansea City. So beware of the false pre-season prophets.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Owen.
And they were just gonna sorry. What's the team here? We got to De Jong, we got to Eriksen, and we had Sancho. So your front three is Rashford. And who else?
A couple of notes here. This team is so bad, that defence. This is actually coming from upstairs in OTB. And apparently, Andy, you've picked more than 11 players, which might help for Man United next season.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer. I'm all over the shop with where the team's going to be, because I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. If you want to hone it down, then, yeah, okay, I'll say Eriksen, De Jong as two. It's really hard question. Ask me in a couple of weeks when I'm on the pre-season tour in wintry Melbourne or wintry Perth, and I'll give you a better answer when I've seen in my own eyes. But if you want to ask me about the Tour de France, I'm right up to date on that.
What when's that, actually?
It was amazing. I'm not a cycle journalist, and I was interviewing people like Geraint Thomas. I had a rider driving the car I was in. I was in the Shimano neutral service car, which was in the middle of all the riders. And he was a Dutch rider who'd been in Stephen Roach's team in 1987. And I'm not a massive cycling fan. I've done a couple of long rides. But I remember Roach coming round the corner at La Plange as a teenager and seeing that on television. And I swear it's one of the greatest moments in sport that I've ever seen. I think he was catching Pedro Delgado. And I don't know what you had on Irish TV, but on British TV, it was something like, who's that coming around the corner? No, it can't be. It can't be. It's Roach. It's Stephen Roach. And I remember thinking, this is magnificent. At a time when no British riders came close to winning the Tour at all. So to have someone from pretty nearby, I took great pride in that. And on Saturday, to be with someone who was in his team, who won the first stage that year in 87 when Roach won it, was brilliant, because I could just soak all this information in from him as he told me about the tactics of the Tour and what was going on, and sort of nod and pretend I knew what he was on about. And it was really nice. And I counted football shirts along the way. Liverpool won. Liverpool fans listening to this will be delighted about that. Manchester United came second. And, Denmark won, actually. So I'm going to take that trophy away from Liverpool, just like Real Madrid did with the European Cup.
Yes or no? Is he on the trip to Asia?
I'd be surprised if he was.
Andy, thanks as ever.
Take care.
Andy showing us his football now. Just get rid of Ronaldo, Manchester United. Why are you even procrastinating here? Anyone with any sort of a football brain knows that this is a calamity. He's getting older. He's bigger than the dressing room. And now he wants out, despite the fact that he's, I don't know, how well is he wanted elsewhere? Lots to discuss. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Tune into Off the Ball each day this week, where, thanks to the Sports Ireland campus, we have daily prizes of €200 vouchers that can be used towards a membership at your elite gym facility, and pitch rentals for your team, kids sport academies and camps, or a football visit to Aquazone Water Park. An amazing overall prize as well of €1,000 voucher, a money can't buy behind the scenes tour, and a sports team fitness testing session by experienced strength conditioning coach. It's all thanks to Sport Ireland Campus, the home of the Irish sport, from beginners to high performance and everyone in between. Here we go. It's time for the sports pages.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
Cathal Mullaney's in the house.
Hello, lads. lads?
Are you watching Tala last night?
Yeah, I saw a bit of it here in the office, Johnny. Very comfortable, wasn't it? Very, very comfortable.
It was, but like you've these moments as well. Like Rory Gaffney scores his third goal, should have been sent off by that stage, and then like Shamrock Rovers should have conceded. There was a 1-on-1, and it was like it seemed like the striker had literally about 10 seconds to decide, and it was almost like he had too much time. But it was a great fight there, like 7,000 people. The Maltese made their voices heard, and it's Sligo Rovers have their European tour upcoming as well. League of Ireland in Europe is going to be fun, I think, this year.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit more of an expectation. Would that be fair to say around the clubs that they're expecting now to do well in these competitions?
And it's the onset of the Conference League that it gives that sort of expectation. And like last year, we obviously had just Bows like in those COVID times, restricted attendance is bringing so much fun to Dublin and so on. So what's going on with you?
Well, lots going on this morning in terms of the sports news. We'll start with that game at Tallaght Stadium last night, and Rory Gaffney saying that Shamrock Rovers' fitness was a significant factor in their win over Hibernians. The Hoops won their first round Champions League qualifier first leg by 3-0 at Tallaght Stadium. Gaffney got on the score sheet alongside Dylan Watts and Ronan Finn. The second leg takes place next week. I don't know, would you go along with that assessment? Their fitness was superior?
Well, this is the thing, like when summer football came in, like it's not easy for the Maltese team out of season to, especially when like Shamrock Rovers had, like if you took Danny Mandroiu, Jack Byrne and Graham Burke out of a League of Ireland team, like they're three of the most talented players possibly ever to play in the League of Ireland in terms of raw ability. They're all offensive sort of midfield type players. One of them is leaving, the other two were injured, and Rovers still brought on players at the end. This kid Justin Ferijaj came on at the end. He was one of 3 Albanian Irish to play for the under-17 Irish team in Turner's Cross last year. Like Albania, a tiny country, you had Rocco Vata, the Rudy Vata link, Kevin Zeffi, and this kid who's probably less heralded than the other two, he looks a footballer, and he was coming on at the end, and it was like, even with all those players missing, they're fit and they have these players to bring in.
Yeah, and the depth of their squad is probably, I think it'd be a very huge disappointment if they didn't get to the Conference League group stages at the very least.
It's the one thing missing from the Bradley reign, that they haven't been to the group stages. It's not that they've done badly, and like group stages are odds against for an Irish team, but it's the one thing missing, I think, from his story so far.
Yeah, and he looked, I thought, quite relieved last night that they got over the line. You probably spoke to him after. I thought just his demeanour, that it felt like a weight off his shoulders that they did get a result in Europe, and it was pretty decisive, and it probably does put the tie to bed, you would think. Maybe one more goal would have made it a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, like, and he went up at the end, and like he went up to the Rovers fans at the end, and he did this like kind of exaggerated wait for a roar, and it really got the place going. And like, spoke to Ronan Finn afterwards. Stephen Bradley's son is struggling with illness at the moment. It's a really difficult time for him, and I think it's a special dressing room at the moment as well.
Yeah, and there looks to be a great vibe in the Shamrock Rovers, the whole thing. And you say the crowd was good, 7,000 there last night, which is fantastic. And let's hope they can keep that momentum going. It'll be great to see another Irish club succeed on the European front. And then you say the 2 clubs tomorrow, and then St. Pat's obviously are also through. And then the obviously knock-on effect, and you know more about this than I, Johnny, but the money that will come into these clubs if they can get through a couple of rounds is hugely significant in terms of planning and infrastructure and the whole lot.
Totally. And like the League of Ireland has been like a basket case economically, because you didn't have your proper prize money, but now you have like quite a few clubs making money from transfers and that European money as well.
Yeah, now the Mandroiu transfer is a dent in terms of the progress that the league has made, and that, as you say, one of the most talented players in the league is leaving for such a paltry sum. And also the move is probably a surprise in terms of the team that he's moving to. You would have thought that Danny Mandroiu may have caught the attention of some bigger clubs cross-channel and further afield in Europe as well.
I guess it gets you on the ladder though, and that's you talk about Owen Toll has been linked from Derry City with Bolton. Like, Bolton's a massive club.
Huge club, yeah.
Even though you're going to that level, like your 3 tiers or whatever of the English system, I guess it gets you on the ladder. And for Mandroiu, he's played League of Ireland for so long, I could totally see why. Once you get on that ladder, see where you go, and England is still the draw. Like, and I know that the money is small, but at the same time, it's kind of an outlier for Rovers, I guess, in terms of the deals they've done.
Yeah, and when Stephen Bradley was linked with the Lincoln job, I have to say I was struck by the research that Dan McDonnell and others did into Lincoln in terms of the size of that club. And they're in, the 5th tier, am I right in saying that? English football, or they're not in the league.
Yeah,
in the league structure. They're in the National League, aren't they?
Lincoln.
Yeah,
Lincoln are. What are they down? They're in. I think they're League One. Are they? Lincoln. Are we wrong? Lincoln City.
Yeah, but the size of the club and the crowds that they were attracting for a club of that size, that I would have thought, they're not really on the radar from an Irish point of view.
They're League One. Yeah,
fully aware of.
Would you get like Bradford last season in the 4th tier getting like 15,000 at their games? Like Sunderland get like 40,000. Like English football crowds are insane. Like even the likes of Lincoln, as you say, and we there was the expectation that Bradley would go to Lincoln. It was it's the next step in the ladder. I think the one thing we have here is like you want your family to be in Dublin as well, and I think that's a big decision for a lot of people. It's like, do I move to England and bring my whole kind of family over there? And it's just massively to Shamrock Rovers' benefit that Bradley didn't go.
Yeah, absolutely. And continuity is such an important thing in the League of Ireland as well, and they've got that with Stephen Bradley, and they've given him time to get things together at Shamrock Rovers, and the overall infrastructure and structures are very, very sound, it would appear, certainly from the outside looking in at the moment. And that's a huge part of their success.
They lost to Dundalk 5-2, and like some of the crowd were shouting for Bradley to go, and they stuck with them. And look where we're at now. Like that, they're a very good side, Rovers. There's a massive kind of swell of support at the club. It's becoming a big deal for a League of Ireland club to be regularly getting 7,000, 7,500 at games, and it's just normal for Rovers now. And wait till the big teams like Ludogorets likely in the next game is going to be a totally different. Hibernians weren't great now, and I spoke to a couple of Rovers players sort of off the record afterwards, and they were like, "Yeah, we were comfortably better than them."
Yeah.
So it just, the stars have aligned a bit for them.
Yeah, they have, and they've got to just make sure that they will deal with next week professionally, obviously, and you would think that they're pretty much home and holes. But then the Ludogorets challenge is really a measure of where you're at in terms of the wider European picture, isn't it?
Totally, and I'd still worry a bit about their lack of pace up front. Like they'd Green and Gaffney last night. Gaffney did a great game, but when you step up levels, you need like an extra gear, and we'll see how it works out.
Yeah,
what else we got?
Well, the Women's European Championship getting underway tonight, Johnny. England, the hosts, playing Austria at Old Trafford from 8. Northern Ireland in the same group. They get their campaign up and running tomorrow. Meanwhile, ahead of that European Championship, Spain have been dealt a blow. Their captain Alexia Putellas has been ruled out due to an ACL injury. The Barcelona midfielder, who was last year's Ballon d'Or winner, picked up the injury in training on Tuesday. Juventus have reached an agreement to sign Paul Pogba on a free transfer. The former Manchester United midfielder is available after leaving Old Trafford at the end of last season. Pogba is expected in Turin on Saturday for a medical and then to formally sign a 4-year contract.
How will that work out?
Well, let's see. I mean, again, it comes back to his attitude and mentality, you would think. And obviously he's been there before, that maybe he'll be a bit more motivated now to do well. But, I mean, it's anyone's guess, isn't it?
It is.
It really is. In hockey today, Johnny, a big game ahead for Ireland. They have to beat Germany at the Women's World Cup today to maintain their hopes of staying in the tournament. Sean Dancer's side are bottom of Pool A. They've already lost to the Netherlands and Chile. The Germans are ranked 4th in the world as of this morning, and they sit in 2nd in the group. And tip-off for that game in Amstelveen is at 3:30 Irish time. So good luck to Ireland in that game. In the tennis today, Rafa Nadal bidding to reach the semi-finals at Wimbledon. He takes on American Taylor Fritz in the last 8. Nick Kyrgios also in action against Christian Garin in the other quarter-final. Defending champion Novak Djokovic and home favourite Cameron Norrie already through after yesterday's action. In the women's singles, Simona Halep continues her search for a second Wimbledon title. The 2019 champion meets Amanda Anisimova in the quarter-finals. The other last 8 tie features the Australian Ayla Tomljanovic and Elena Rybakina of Kazakhstan. Tatiana Maria and Ons Jabeur progressed to the last 4 yesterday. And finally, to finish some Gaelic games news, Pat Ryan's appointment as the new Cork senior hurling manager was ratified last night. The two-time All-Ireland under-20 winning boss succeeds Kieran Kingston, while Tipperary are on the lookout for a new senior camogie manager. Bill Mullaney stepped down from the role as boss last night. That's after 5 years in charge.
We'll stay with you just on the issue of Nadal at Wimbledon. Just looking up Nadal here, what a career he's had. He's turned 36 this summer, and Ronan Finn got the first goal last night. He turns 35 this year. TJ Reid's performance last weekend, I was making this point that like the League of Ireland isn't necessarily any country for old men anymore. It's like it's a very young league. Ronan Finn was playing right wing back for Shamrock Rovers, like right wing back, a position that requires a lot of energy. Scores the first goal. Gaffney's like I think 32. He set him up, but Ronan Finn to be doing that and his experience But just I spoke to him afterwards. He's like, my recovery now. It's like how I recover. And TJ Reid last week, like that performance on Saturday, like for his age, it's inspiring.
It is. The age thing is an interesting thing in sport, and obviously we're looking at different sports there. And you mentioned TJ Reid and Ronan Finn. So TJ Reid, I would imagine, plays a lot less games in a season than Ronan Finn would, and at a lot less frequency. So from a sports science point of view, it's very interesting to see how they taper and measure their performance. I guess Ronan Finn, from a football player's point of view, playing in the League of Ireland, the pre-season and getting a good block of work done there, you would think is very important. And then it's just a case week on week of topping up your fitness rather than going through hard sessions. Whereas the likes of TJ Reid, where Kilkenny had a 4-week gap, you know, between their game the last day and their game before that in Leinster. How do you negotiate that as a player at that age? Do you need the hard training, or is it a case of just kind of minding the body and doing your recovery after your sessions? But it's remarkable that players are, like, I guess that is old now, isn't it, in the modern inter-county game?
It is.
TJ Reid at that age.
And you know, like, so sticking on the Kilkenny team here, right? So I'm talking to Limerick fans after the game on Sunday. Limerick are raging hot favourites to beat Kilkenny. Fair enough. Who are the neutrals up for?
That's a great question.
This is an interesting one now. So, like, there's Brian Cody's year that he's had, and like, Brian Cody's never been more fascinating as a character as he is right now.
Yeah.
And even the taxi man this morning is like, how is he still doing it? Like, how is he not giving up at this stage? The man is obsessed, but they're still performing for him. But as a neutral, he hasn't had the greatest year.
No, he hasn't. But it's a fascinating. I think Brian Cody won a lot of people back by winning the game the last day, I have to say. And I think because it's very clear now that he has reinvented yet another Kilkenny team to almost reach the peak, and it's underlined his status probably as the greatest hurling manager of all time. And if he can win this game against Limerick, who are generally considered as the opposition to Kilkenny's status as probably the best team of the modern era, this would cement Cody's status and I think win a lot more people back. Obviously the Shefflin stuff is a bit, you know, it kind of took over there in the middle of the summer, but I think now people are more focused on Cody's huge ability as a manager, as a man manager, as a tactician. And you could argue that if they do beat Limerick in this final, it would be his greatest achievement yet.
I agree.
And I would suggest that quite a few neutrals are actually up for Kilkenny.
Yeah, it's interesting. Who are you up for? 53106, or get us on the social channels. Kilkenny are the raging hot favourites. Limerick going for 3 in a row. We have the headlines from today's sport as well, and it is a very, very busy day of sport. It's a busy day for Boris Johnson as well. His career hangs in the balance. How is it taking this long for some of the lads to like jump ship? I mean, this has been a sinking ship for so long. So that's obviously the front of the Irish Times today. I'm sure Boris trying to latch himself onto the England Euro bid. Chris me quick. United won't sell to Blues. Eric wants Ron sorted, and Gaffney puts the boot in. If you have missed this, how Rory Gaffney wasn't sent off last night, and he's like afterwards, the lad said I connected, but I didn't really mean it. Of course, he's a Galway man.
He's Contracts from Tuam, isn't he?
Tuam man. I think he might even have bought a gaff in Tuam. Apologies if I'm wrong on that. Come home, Rory. We need you. Come back to Galway. Another Galway great who never played for Galway United. We have Cloppy Cat. Anfield legend Fowler says the only way Ten Hag will have success is to follow the blueprint used by Klopp in Liverpool. That is in the Mirror. We also have here the Daily Mail. Sort this out. McElroy backs peace talks to solve the Saudi crisis. God. Ireland happy that Sexton is good to go again. Yeah, so Sexton ready for the second test against the All Blacks. We also have the Guardian here. Boris is on the front, as he should be, obviously, and flying the flag. Norrie battles through Goff and Triller to set up Djokovic clash in Wimbledon, which is ongoing as well. A couple of other papers here. The Mirror, we said the Mirror Cloppy Cat, which is obviously a play on Klopp. Finally here we have, these are literally papers I've already gone through. My papers is an absolute shambles. I think it is probably time to be joined now by Kevin Walsh. How are you, Kevin?
Great, guys. Good morning.
Yeah, when you were on, you were on before the Armagh game. It was thanks to Cathal as well for the news there. You were on before the Armagh game. You essentially called as close as you could call the madness of that game. You called it that it'd be tight.
Yeah, I suppose it was tight, and I suppose after the fact, we can all say we called it right. But I suppose it's two unknowns really. So I mean, it's very, very hard to break down winners. And you know, and similarly, I suppose Sunday coming up, or Saturday evening, shall I say, the two new teams playing two new teams with not the most of experience. So it's very hard to call those games.
Just go back to the Armagh game. Like, what was it like from your perspective in terms of your coaching hat on? Because, like always, their shooting accuracy. We'll talk to Diarmuid O'Sullivan, and he'll be regretting Cork shooting accuracy against Galway in the hurling. But like Galway shooting accuracy throughout the day, and I suppose as well as that, Kevin, like their mental fortitude to come through what was a kind of a Gubu situation in sporting terms.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, the likes of Robert Finnerty, you know, he might be blessed with the amount of pace that some other corner forwards are, but his movement and his decision making, ever since a young fella, would have been awfully good. And he just finds those pockets where he's shooting from, I suppose, under not as much pressure as others with their head down would be. And it shows, I suppose, the difference between being a very fast player and a smart player. And you know, Robert has brought an awful lot to that full forward line, as in just accuracy and high success rates, I suppose, of shooting. So he'd be one of the big things in there. But look, I suppose they're patient, to be fair to them. They, you know, got 15 behind the ball at times, like I would have expected. And I remember saying this when they played Clare in the league game, 2 games from home in the league, that it was 1-2 each at half time, and Galway were completely behind the ball from tip. And you know what? Rightly so, because they're now got a plan. And it's about the quick transition. And as you said, you know, that their efficiency in front of goal is really important.
That was the thing on as well, wasn't it? Just Galway shooting in the modern game, you need that, and they did not waste.
No, they didn't. And sorry, they didn't. And to be fair, you know, I'm not so sure the same space will be there against Derry. I would have felt, you know, there's 20 minutes in the first half, Donegal against Armagh, we have said it's the last time, where I think Donegal won that period 9-2, and I think they had about 4 goal chances in that time. So Derry probably won't give up those goal chances, or even given the likes of Robert Finnerty as much time as he got, because they'll have the area blanketed. And I would say that they're a step ahead in relation to their defensive programme. But it'd be interesting then to see, like, I mean, I saw Armagh, they were 7 points forward against Galway, and whether they were listening to the outsides about the lovely kicking game or not, but they tried to tread in a numerous kick passes before half time, and they weren't really on. Galway had the back covered up, and they hit them on the counter. So they're going to, you know, it'll be how patient Galway can be on Saturday as well as that.
Like, do you subscribe to this idea, Kevin, that the timing of your tactics is as important as what the tactics are? Because it does seem to me that Derry have had a habit of scoring these early goals all throughout the championship, and it is that early sucker blow that if Galway can just ride out the storm early on, they could potentially be a little bit more adventurous into the second half if the game is in the balance. Yeah, because look, it's even, you know, if you were leading at half time, you know, it's a big plus, in particular with teams that I suppose can go well set up, especially defensively when you're hard to break them down. So it'd be kind of important that Galway aren't behind Derry at half time, because Derry will sit and they're quite good at it, and they'll sit and they'll hit you on the break. And I mean, you know, their full back line will be coming off the shoulder. Every one will come off the shoulder, and they'll hit on the counter attack. So it would be very important that Galway are solid in the first while, so that Derry don't get that chance to sit back and hit on the counter every so often.
What did you make of Galway defensively against Armagh, actually?
Very strong. It was great to see it. You know, I suppose the start off, one big thing I suppose, and I hope Galway may have improved in this, is the kick-out strategy. They were bombing a lot of balls down the middle, kind of aimlessly, and Armagh tended to gain control a lot of that in the first, which probably led to 7-4 lead for them. So I'd be hoping that maybe, you know, that the kick-out strategy will be a bit stronger, and that does allow you to be defensively set up better, which Galway were in the latter part of the game. So they're getting bodies back, and they're understanding what to do and hitting the counter. So defensively we're strong, but again, Armagh did kick ball away that they shouldn't have done, and I don't see Derry kicking the ball like that if Galway get back with the numbers.
Just psychologically as well. I remember like 2001, remember reading the paper the next day, the Irish Independent are like, Galway are on the cusp of dominating football for a long, long time to come. They hadn't won a championship game at Croke Park, a knockout championship game between then, 2001 and the Derry game. So it is a monkey off their back.
Yeah. I suppose, look, that's the way things go. 2001, we were a lot of young fellas came through, and we had a lot of older fellas that were, I suppose, ready to go to the gap. So sometimes
we never replaced you, Kevin. We never replaced you.
I'm not so sure of that now. But yeah, look, it's about timing is vital, and to get younger lads in with experienced lads there. And I suppose Galway have that at the minute. Like there's probably 7 or 8 that were there playing 2018 when we bet Kerry up there in the championship in the Super 8s. So Galway probably have more experience of the bigger game in Croke Park now than actually Derry. I know you speak about Galway not winning 2001, but
yeah,
Derry have been there for young. So, and they're coming from Division 4, Division 3, and still in Division 2. So, Galway have 4 or 5 years behind them in Division 1, albeit went back down for 1 year. So you'd have to say that experience alone is certainly sitting on Galway, even though the record in Croke Park for a number of years hasn't been great. But in recent past, though, I think that's kind of shifted a little bit. But, it'll be down to can Galway take this Derry defence apart? And that'll be quite difficult.
Yeah, we've had a lot of nostalgia on the show this morning. Alan Hansen, I slightly I jest when I say we never replaced Kevin Walsh, but there was the post-Kevin Walsh midfield did kind of struggle. One of the men who came in 20 years later is the brilliant and almost enigmatic Paul Conroy, and he is part of one of your 4 key matchups here. Conroy versus Conor Glass. This is the first of your 4, Kevin.
Yeah, look, Paul has been, I think he's, the last 14, 15 games, I think he scored something like 127. So, he's been shooting the lights out, and his shooting efficiency has been top class as well. So, look at Paul is 33. He's rebounded very, very well since the double break of the legs, and look, he's totally committed to what he does. So I suppose this is his first big one. I think as in having to deal with the likes of Conor Glass, who looks to be, a similar steady-headed midfielder, solid, not just doing little bits and pieces here and there, and then stepping out of the game for 15 minutes. So this is going to be a huge test for Paul and a huge test for Conor Glass. So I think the middle part of the field with those 2 guys is going to be crucial for the outcome. But again, the kick-out strategy is going to be huge on that. Sometimes it's bypassed, but if it is anything like it was in the first 15 minutes against Armagh, the man-to-man battle is going to be crucial. So that one of the battles I see will be going a huge way towards winning this game.
One of the big questions for Pádraig Joyce will be who picks up Shane McGuigan. So who would you put on him?
I would think Sean Kelly would probably go on him. Shane has been really, really good. He's quick. He can use both feet. He's a free taker. But again, the way Galway, I suppose, their success, and sometimes back in our own time, lots of success is built around double teaming as well. So, sometimes it's not as simple as just 1v1 or who's doing well against 2. But when you go inside in the full back line now, you're probably going to be double teaming. I think anybody in today's game would have an open full back line. The forward is going to go on top, and regardless who's on who, because it's just the way the game has gone. The crossfield balls, the V cuts, the screening, all the stuff that goes on in today's game. If you haven't got a double teamer, I suppose there's a way of saying it. You delay, you deny, and you defend. And if your team are not the first 2, defending is very difficult. So, regardless who takes up McGuigan or Comer on the other side, there's going to be a certain amount of double teaming involved.
That brings us on to the third matchup. Damien Comer, strangely enough, was actually sort of peripheral in the game for a long time. The last day, Kevin, then did come good, and obviously was involved in the Lee or whatever. Him and Brendan Rodgers now is your next one. Yeah,
I think that's a huge one. Look, and to be honest, I've been at the game the last day. Comer, I think, done a bit more than people think. He was involved in quite a bit of setting up people and just being kind of awkward for the opposition. And obviously, I think he got 3 points in play as well. So,
is it the fact that he attracts so much attention? Because sometimes, he's double marked and so on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at it, he's also a goal threat, and people know he can get goals. So you just can't leave him isolated. And again, whether Derry want to do that or don't want to do it, they won't leave him isolated because that's the way they play now. So they have the defence set up. They've +1, +2 back there. So there's going to be a limited amount of space inside for the inside forward lines, I would predict. But I mean, there's two things here with that battle. Will Cormac be getting the points? Will he get the frees? Will he get a goal in the match? And then you look at Rodgers. For me, is one of the best fullbacks the last 10 years. You know, his ball control, his fitness, his athleticism. He brings an offer to the game. It's not just marking. And he will be bombing up the field. Will he be taking Cormac with him? If Cormac is brought back so often, will he gas out a bit, which he can do because he's such a big man? And, you know, I would expect that in that battle that Rory will be telling Rodgers to up the field as many times as he can. So it's how can Galway then maybe swap or whatever it is to protect Comer not to get cast out.
That's interesting because it felt maybe in the first quarter of the game against Armagh where Galway were really struggling that Comer looked gassed a little bit. It might have just been because I was in the Cusack and he was right in front of me.
Comer always looks gassed on though. That's just the look on his face.
But what was kind of interesting to me was that he was kind of like just hanging deep and actually collecting the short kick out off the goalkeeper. And I was like, this is supposed to be your target man. I know he's not necessarily there. He comes out deep all the time, but he was collecting the short kick out, was the first man to take the ball up the pitch on occasion in those first 15 minutes. I'm not sure, is that a tactical instruction, Kevin? Is that something that Comer does himself, or what do you read into moments like that? Because Derry will have that packed defence again, and he might have to do that this weekend.
I suppose when a team is on top and winning ball, and that's why the midfield battle there, as I would have said, is going to be crucial, because if you win enough ball, all the backs nowadays are heading up that field, and you know, if you don't follow them or go with them, you're being deemed as lazy or whatever your thing. So either way, you will find yourself back there if your team isn't in possession, because you're going to be ran at, and that's why I'm saying that Derry full back time will probably push as much as they can. Number one is supposed to take the guys out of the scoring zone. Number two, to get on the end of scores themselves or set them up. And number three, if you do, we'll say, do your analysis and you feel that you can run a certain player, I suppose, to make them a little bit gassed out, that's another ploy. So that's going to be crucial on that. But I suppose you have no choices really, unless your midfield area gets control, that you will end up back. And look, if you look at Galway last week, including Armagh, there was 15 behind, not 14. It was actually, the goalie wasn't even, the Armagh goalie wasn't even in the half once, where all the Galway players went back. So I suppose that's something that Galway have been working on and that they're willing to do to get their defensive system right.
I think the matchup that we're all expecting is that Shane Walsh will be picked up by Chrissy McCaig. You're not going to make a case that's not going to happen, Kevin, I presume?
No, I expect McCaig will pick up Shane. And I just seen an article he wrote himself about a week ago where he said that whatever job he has to do, he'll do. It might mean not even looking at the ball once. He will be looking at his opponent. I think he more or less said that. So I do expect that he will be the man marker for Shane. That's going to be a crucial one as well. And I suppose, Shane himself, I suppose, coming to the bigger games in Croke Park in relation to getting on the scoreboard and stuff, there's something there he needs to prove for himself as well, that he might be that bit more involved and find a way, if he is getting the traction, that he can get into the game a bit more often and that his teammates can help him to get into the game a bit more often. If that takes, screening or whatever it takes to allow one of the more skillful players to get on the ball, that's something the team, I hope, will have worked on to allow Shane get some space. But that's something...
Explain that, Kevin, actually. I find that fascinating. Explain that if you can.
Well, it's just that, in the GAA, we've an awful habit of running all the time to try and get loose. And, the one way you lose an opponent is by change of pace or change of direction. That's the two things that is the best way you lose an opponent. Now, if you're being stuck to and everything else, players need to calm down and just stand for a while. Get your opponents or your colleagues with you, join you in a certain area and try to get you free. Little things like that you can work on in training, because winning a ball out in lane 1, lane 5 for your best player or your most skillful player, you're not going to score in those areas. So sometimes the defence are quite happy to let you win the ball out there, where in actual fact, if you could win the ball in the middle 3 lanes by using your own teammates, you're in a far better position. So it's just that, I suppose, for Shane and McCaig, that's a huge battle to see how much Shane will get actually involved in the game.
Can't wait for it. And Shane Walsh's performance had a bit of everything the last day. So I want your predictions for both semi-finals, Kevin, actually, no.
Yeah, I went slightly with Galway the last day, even though it went to penalties. I believe they're the more experienced team. They're still the more experienced team than Derry are. I think Derry have won an Ulster this year from Division 2, which is a huge achievement. Don't believe there's Ulster is as strong as it was. I think Tyrone have gone back a lot. Donegal have gone back a lot. You're looking at, I suppose, Armagh, who only spent one season in Division 1. You're now with Derry in Division 2. So I'm going to call Galway slightly, but there's a but there. And I think the biggest but here is that Galway have the patience, number one, that if they don't get a fast break, that they're the patience not to kick ball inside if Derry are completely matched up at the back, because I do believe Derry are far stronger at the back than Armagh are. And if they've got their runners based coming through in the right areas, not just run all over the place, that they're a bit more, how to say it to you, send them one and two and three, the third runner in the same areas just to pull that defence apart. And again, if Derry are like that they will bring out their full forwards to the outside and have runners off the shoulders to break down the defence rather than leaving two inside and hoping it'll work out. So there's loads of stuff that's there to break down the defence, and that's the biggest thing for Galway.
What about the other game?
I believe, and I don't know, I have no confirmation, that Conor Callan might be in trouble and injury-wise. I think if he is, I'll be honest, I can only see one winner. I thought Dublin against Cork, while they won the game by 11 points for 21 points, they don't have a goal threat at the minute with the lads up front. McCarthy and Conor Callan are absolutely huge for Dublin. And I think if either of them aren't there, I'm going to call Kerry. If both are there, the fact that Dublin are on their home ground, it's worth 5 or 6 points to them, it'll be really, really tight. But I'm going to call it Conor Callan's best that Kerry will win, handy enough.
Thanks a million for your time, Kevin, and enjoy the game Saturday.
Welcome, guys. Best of luck.
Yeah, Kevin Walsh, always fascinating to hear from the former Galway manager. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs. For an effortless finish to your day, here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio today. At 1 p.m. we have Catherine Switzer. 3 p.m. Coy Gig, England v Austria preview. The match is at 8 tonight. 4 p.m. the retro panel. We look back on Limerick's 2018 All-Ireland win. Do we really need to? 6 p.m. OTB Gold, James McLean. 7 o'clock tonight, OTB is live. Joe Malloy is back after his like Owen enjoying himself at the golf this week. Follow Off the Ball across all our social channels. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to download the OTB Sports app for the latest in the best sports content and analysis. After the ads, we are live with The Rock, Diarmuid O'Sullivan, fresh and departing the Cork hurling backroom staff. Talk to you shortly.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This summer, we're bringing you double Coy Gig.
I just burst out laughing, to be fair, because you've waited so long for a goal and it should have been disallowed. It was a blatant handball. That nearly makes it all the better. The fact that it was such a weird and wonderful goal. It absolutely reflects Niamh Flaherty as a person.
But that'll make for great content for the podcast.
Well, that's why we do it.
For the best insight and analysis from this summer's Euros, subscribe to the Coy Gig pod on the OTB Sports app now.
Marginal gains? XG? Top speed? Recovery? What's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
We're going to Diarmuid O'Sullivan very, very shortly. You just see the back of the sun today. Ryan's man for Rebels. Colm, who's our producer from Cork, he's been doing sterling work setting up guests in the mornings, but he did set up Diarmuid O'Sullivan before this news, so this is very helpful. Pat Ryan was unanimously ratified as Cork senior hurling manager last night. I find the whole Cork thing fascinating, known because, like, you look at the game against Galway, they should have won, like, straightforward. Galway got out the gate that day, should have won, and then you see how close Galway end up pushing Limerick, you see the situation where Clare get a hocking from Kilkenny, and like there's a big hurling narrative which we'll talk to you about shortly in terms of Cork is still a very, very alluring job for the incumbents, and they could be a force, obviously.
Yeah, it's a hugely attractive one. It's like one of the biggest jobs in hurling right now. I mean, you've obviously got the traditional three that Tommy Walsh always talks about, doesn't he? The Cork, Kilkenny, Tipperary situations. They're going to be three counties that get scrutinised more than any other. Cork is definitely one of them. The Cork hurlers and Dublin footballers are almost the two most high-profile setups in the country, I might venture. That we might come back to that at a different point, because I'd suggest that there will be a couple of people who might disagree with that.
Yeah, we all know Diarmuid from be it soccer, hurling or Gaelic football. Cork people, they really, really get behind you when you're doing well. It can be difficult when you're not. How are you keeping?
Good, lads. How are you doing? All well.
Just firstly, actually, can I just get your views on the hurling last weekend? What a weekend we had.
Yeah, even though I wanted it, guys, I was slow to sit down and watch it, but I suppose the Gael in me eventually came around to sitting down watching the couple of games, you know.
Despite yourself.
Yeah, just despite myself, just to make it even more difficult, just as the dust was starting to settle. But you know, we're hurling people. We love hurling, so we we'll always watch it, and we'll always be enthralled and intrigued by what actually happens, you know, on game day, how the four sets of players go out, how they perform, you know, how they put on a show and a spectacle for the hurling fraternity of the country and further afield. And I don't think last Saturday or Sunday was a letdown to the game of hurling by any manner of means, you know.
It's obviously, it's obviously just very raw the way you're talking there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just came in at the end of your conversation there. Like, hurling's a game of fine margins. You know, we went out to Galway a number of weeks ago on fine margins, and Galway, you know, last Sunday, they'll argue the same case. They had enough opportunities to dethrone Limerick as well. And you know, if you don't take your chances against the better opposition, that's you know, you'll find yourself out of the competition.
And you mentioned that. How many regrets do you have about that game in some stadium? Because like Galway got, in my view, they got completely out of jail. It was just one of them days where you maybe you hit wide, you hit the ball in the goalie's hand, you miss goal chances, and then that's like, you talk about fine margins, but how could you not have so many regrets about that? You end up losing by a point, and if you have XG and hurling, Cork win that game comfortably.
Yeah, look. If you want to go down the analytical side of it, we had 55 opportunities in goal. Which we think was 23 or 24 of them. So, guys, you know, you don't need to be a genius or a scientist to work out where the winning and losing the game was there. Is there regrets? Absolutely. Were we disappointed? Absolutely. But, you know, on the day, our guys gave everything they had. You know, as I said, some of them opportunities didn't come off. There's no one held in bad light because of it. If you look at go back to last Sunday again, Galway had similar opportunities, they didn't come off. So look, if you're investing so much time and energy into the game, you know, and you're at full throttle all the time, when you're trying to execute, these opportunities won't come off all of the time. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and patronise any of our players or any of the Galway players or Clare players or anyone for that matter, because the intensity levels they're working under and the scrutiny they're working under are ferocious. And of course, there has to be room for, you know, I won't use the word failure. There has to be room for mistakes to happen within the game, because, you know, their time on the ball is so precious and so little, and the intensity and the pressure they're under is absolutely
incredible.
Phenomenal.
It's absolutely, like, if you watch the hurling last Sunday,
off the charts.
It's unbelievable.
Off the charts.
Like the level of hurling now in terms of the physicality and the fitness, and the stats have been borne out. Like, watching that game on Sunday was incredible, and like, you're talking such fine margins here, like literally split seconds.
Oh, guys, it's incredible. Like, if you cannot control the ball within 1 or 2 seconds and probably move the ball onto the guy in the next position or even have a shot at a score, you're swarmed, you're done. You're done. 2 to 3 second window, like in a game, you know, where the ball can travel faster than any man in the field. It's just incredible to think that guys are now conditioned to be able to, you know, to do what they do over the course of 75, 80 minutes in a game.
Diarmuid, can you talk us through the aftermath of that defeat and the decision for you as a management team to step away?
Yeah, look, I suppose the aftermath, as we alluded there, with a goal. Look, it's still a bit raw with us. The fact we went out because we believed we made a commitment to our squad that we get them back to Croke Park again this year. We fell short on our commitment. It wasn't from the lack of effort or the want of trying, because Kieran Kingston is a very, very honourable man, and he will do everything, not only for the backroom team, for the group of players. And unfortunately, we fell short, and it'll take a while to move on and the memories to disappear, I suppose. But the aftermath. Okay, there was the offer of another term. Kieran has given 12, 13, 14 years of his life to being a selector, manager, mayor, foreign, or whatever you want. And, we just felt probably it was time for a new voice.
So the option was there to hang around next year, and it was because you didn't get back to Croke Park. It was essentially the reason why you didn't decide to take them up on that offer for another year.
No, not essentially. No, there's probably other reasons behind it that I'm not going to share with you guys, obviously. But ultimately, Kieran's decision was, look, for the sake of the option and that year, look, maybe best place someone come in now, get a 2-3 year term and start to put their own stamp on it.
How hard is that, Diarmuid, though? Because you are literally talking such fine margins here, and it's not an ideal way to go out at all. I mean, Cork are now forgotten about in the championship. We move on and so on and so forth. But did you not want that one more chance to kind of put right the wrongs of Thurles?
Oh, guys, if we could run that clock back again to that day, but unfortunately we'll never get that day in our lives back again. You can go. Look, there's two ways of looking at it. Yeah, absolutely. Would we have loved to right them wrongs? You look at the other side of the coin. Could it go pear-shaped again? Could next year go pear-shaped and we mightn't even get out of Munster?
Yeah.
So look, you're balancing. We feel we've done. We've left Cork hurling in a healthy position. We've left a very young squad behind us, and I've no doubt with the group of players that are there. They're more than capable of getting back up on the horse and riding them wrongs for themselves.
Yeah, I actually think the Galway defence actually managed Limerick in some respects better than they did year running game. They just kind of got out of jail. That's my point on it. Incredible proud to stand with Kieran over the last 3 years. Thank you for everything and staying true to your vision. Scrutinised to the extreme by those who wore red, stood on the line as red so they could remain relevant through various media outlets. When they walk the walk, ! Diarmuid O'Sullivan, this was your tweet. The rock on the pitch, the rock off the pitch. There's an awful lot to get through there, and this is your moment to explain that tweet.
Oh, guys, how long is the programme? Because, okay, look, it's very simple, right? Social media has now become society, right? And a lot of things are driven through social media, etc., etc. But through that, you need to find balance, right?
Good luck with that.
And that's impossible. But if you look at it, there's a number of guys in the game of hurling. Look at Paul Murphy, right? He's one of the most balanced guys I've ever seen to talk about the game of hurling. To be fair, Eddie Brennan, similar, James O'Connor, right? They're very, very balanced guys. And they're fair but judgmental at the same time. I think that's what anyone is looking for. But I suppose Kieran has worked under some of the most scrutinised conditions any inter-county manager has faced. I do believe that Cork is still the most attractive. Cork manager's job is still the most attractive in the country. Some people are probably looking at their computer screens now already to figure, what is this guy on about? That's my opinion, right? As we know what to say about opinions, but that's another story. I do believe it's the most prestigious job in hurling. But again, it's the most scrutinised, and whatever about national media, etc. Some of the harshest scrutiny has come from people within Cork. People who've worn the red jersey, people who've stood in the line doing certain roles as part of Cork setup, etc. So, it's tough to take in that circumstance. It's tough. It's tough when your own turn and you haven't started to throw slide remarks, digs.
Who though, Joe? I don't know the local media. Who are you referring to here?
Sure, no, guys, you're on social media as much as anyone, but I'm not. You're clever enough to figure out what has been going on over the last while. Our training venues are questioned. Our loyalty to senior players is questioned, that we alienate them, along as various other things. So look, it's a minefield. If you want to dig into it, I've no doubt you'll find all that information for yourselves.
So you're referring to maybe the Horgan decision that he didn't start. And I'd imagine now, people forget that this is an amateur game, right? And the scrutiny sometimes is way over the top. And from your perspective, that must be a pain in the hole at times.
Absolutely, but lads, opinions are like arseholes. Everyone has one, right? So that, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. There was a guy, right? Let's be straight, right? There was a guy questioned our loyalty to senior players. Had we alienated some of them, right? The same guy who questioned our loyalty once he was deemed surplus to requirements by Kieran, jumped ship on the very club who gave him the opportunity to play for Cork and move back across the border. So, there's certain little elements and little things in around this that are very, very hard to take,
How does that seep into your thinking then, Diarmuid? Are you on social media yourself, or how does it become apparent to you that this sort of stuff is being said?
As much as you try to block it out, guys, it's always seeping, because you'll always meet someone during the day or the course of your week and say, "Geez, did you see such and such a fella? Did you see this guy's podcast? Did you read this guy's report? Did you see this guy in the Sunday game?" As much as you like to keep it out, you'll always get fed back into you, but you just have to switch out. We believe we gave everything to the cause. We did everything in the right manner to bring Cork hurling forward. So, we can move out of the job with our heads held high over the course of the last 3 years. So, 20, 21, 22, 20 and 21 were, dictated by COVID some manners. This year was probably the first year that we got a real crack at the championship. So, yeah, look, we can go up with our heads held high.
So just to sum up, it was people criticising the training venues, the loyalty to older players, and I guess it's something that you can't avoid. And yourself and Kieran are talking about this. Is it a thing that the players are talking about as well, and does it feed into their performances?
No, absolutely not. Myself, Kieran, Pat and Noel, not for 1 second did we give it any thought, because we knew what we were doing on the field was the right thing. The players... Okay, if you look at it, right, we were on a run of 9 out of 10 games where we were undefeated early in the year. Obviously, the National League final was a disappointment for us, right? But following that National League final, Waterford were the benchmark. They were the team to beat. How could anyone stop them from going up the steps of the Hogan stand was the narrative that was built around that. While all the time while that was going on, we were trying to get ourselves ready to play Limerick. So it just brought in a little mini run where every team goes through a dip. We were no different to others. We had a dip, but it was the way our performances were scrutinised, the way we played the game, the way we were tactically set up, questions around were we capable of doing it, etc., etc. It wasn't just around training venues or the alienation of older players, So it was just a multitude and a mix of things. But we were big boys. We were able to block the noise out, We'd refer to it as Spanish. I can't speak Spanish, so I don't really understand it. So I keep it on the outside,
Pat Mulcahy interview in the Echo on Monday. To be honest, you'd understand national media stuff are a bit removed from Cork. It's more sound bites and personal. What did hurt was the negative reaction from former Cork players, in particular those who have platforms on podcasts and social media. Some of that stuff came across as unhelpful and as having an agenda behind it. I think that's the important thing there, Diarmuid.
Well, look, I can't speak for Pat, guys. I can only talk through what my feelings and what we went through during the season. An agenda, some of them guys, if we look through it, there's history between certain members of previous management, old management who would be involved in our backroom teams. There would be history there. I'm not going to give you a history lesson. If you want to dig into it a bit deeper, you'll see the rationale and the reason for Pat's statement, because at some stages through the careers of these guys on their podcasts or social medias have crossed paths with member of management down through the years.
Go ahead on.
I was just going to ask, like, obviously we don't need to go do the history lesson, but is there still divisions in Cork when we go back to the very obvious moments of the 2000s? Is there still divisions from that moment, do you feel?
No doubt there's underlying issue. No doubt there's underlying currents there all the time. But look, once you're in a job like ours, that we've been privileged. Let me state that for the record. We've been absolutely privileged, myself and Kieran. We've had 5 years. Privilege is probably doing it injustice. So, but that was the most important thing for us. Yeah, you'll have underlying currents, you'll have everything else, but the privilege for us to be involved with the Cork senior hurling squad for 5 years was, it's hugely proud for us and our families.
Absolutely, but I guess then when you look at other setups in Gaelic games like Limerick at the moment and what they've done, it's everybody getting behind them, rowing behind the team, going into one direction. The Dubs very much got their resources in line and made the best of their situation at the end of the 2000s. Like, do you look at those setups and do you look at those counties and say, if we could get everybody on side in Cork, that the potentially hasn't been realised and could be realised over the next little while?
To be honest, I don't think you need everyone on side. All you need is the group of players in the backroom team you have involved in a given season to be on side. You keep the Spanish out. You look after what's inside your own four walls. You can only get what's inside your own four walls, right? You can't worry about what goes on outside it, because if you do, then there's too many variables and too many things come into it. So we always concerned ourselves with ourselves. But yes, you're right in relation to Limerick and Dublin. They have, they molded something that was really, really strong, and they're now bearing fruit for it.
Just briefly now, so we have a couple more questions for you. Just how do you think Pat Ryan will get on?
Wonderful. Pat Ryan is a brilliant, brilliant guy with a brilliant attitude, and I think Pat, with the group of players that we have left and the group of a number of players that are coming behind, I think Pat and his incoming management team will have a wonderful opportunity to bring Cork hurling back to where it needs to be.
My final question for you is, would this put you off going in again, all this crap that you're alluding to this morning?
I'm thick-skinned, guys. Let's be honest. Some of it does concern me, because when it comes from your own, it's probably hard to take. But there's reason behind everything why people do this. So look, you can't question person's the rationale or the reasoning for pursuing Cork management over the last while. No, I wouldn't think so. Look, again, Cork hurling, in my opinion, right, and everyone is entitled to theirs, is the most prestigious job in the game of hurling. So, never say never to anything. I suppose what I'm saying.
I guess having seen them both up close, Diarmuid, did it be foolish for us to leave you go without asking you who's going to win the final? I mean, you've seen them both. Obviously, the situation with Limerick this year has just been one of these where they seem to be back to a level where they're hungrier than ever. I guess 2 years with COVID will do that to them. And obviously, you'll have seen Kilkenny down through the last few years as well. So can Limerick be stopped, I guess, next weekend?
Can Limerick be stopped next weekend? Like, for years there was a thing you would be foolish to back against Kilkenny, and Kilkenny when they're all Ireland finals. When the same question was about there, you'd be foolish to back against Kilkenny. I think now Limerick are so comfortable and so calm in every situation, every facet of the game. You'd be foolish to look beyond Limerick. While I know that's a contradiction, that you'd never look beyond Kilkenny in a final, because what we saw from Brian Cody's team last week was reminiscent of years gone by. That rawness, that hunger, that aggression. It's incredible to think Brian has transitioned a new team to get to an All-Ireland final like that. We faced 90% of that team ourselves last year in All-Ireland semi-final, and it was obvious that there was something coming. But for Brian to transition that group, where again, right, he was scrutinised and heavily scrutinised by Kilkenny and the hurling media when he didn't step away following that defeat last year. So look, he's galvanised that. But just, Limerick, what can you say about them? They're the benchmark. It's just they're longer on their journey, guys, and on that basis, you'd have to give them the nod.
Will you? Hopefully, you'll be able to enjoy it in some shape or form, anyway.
Jeez, no, lads, that's a big statement.
Brilliant having you on, Diarmuid.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it.
That was the legendary Diarmuid O'Sullivan. A lot of talking points there on. I think one of them being just the quality of hurling and the speed of it is insane at the moment when you see it up close.
Yeah, it's been another brilliant season. I mean, obviously Saturday was a little bit of a disappointment in terms of the result, but I think Kilkenny being awesome actually just tees us up beautifully for the All-Ireland final. I think if Kilkenny had limped through against Clare, the build-up would be like, how can anybody beat Limerick? Whereas now it's like, geez, this is going to be a hell of a final.
What do you have the rest of the day?
Well, we're going to get ready for Tralee later on. We are in the company of Jason Sherlock and Darragh O'Canada. We're also going to have Kilkenny's Tommy Welsh down for a bit of hurling chat as well. It's one of our Guinness 00 road shows. So, it should be good. It should be a good evening looking ahead to Kerry Dublin on Sunday. See what the lads think. Who's going to win that one?
The best of luck with that, and we shall talk to you soon.
Yeah, cheers, Johnny. Chat to you.
Yeah, that was Eoin Sheahan. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back tomorrow at 7:30 AM during the hot seats. I'll be here as well. We'll have rugby chat ahead of Ireland's second test. Johnny Sexton declared fit this weekend, as well as previewing the All-Ireland football semi-finals. I cannot wait for the weekend. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. Galway and Derry, one of them is going to be in an All-Ireland final. So much to look forward to. Right now, we're leaving you with the fascinating story of Wally Green and how ping pong saved his life. See you tomorrow.
Now to our next piece, a little bit different to what we might usually do. I suppose, in a sense, it's how sport can change a life in an unexpected way. Very happy to say we're joined by Wally Green. Wally, great to have you on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Here's a quote you don't read every day. If it weren't for table tennis, I'd be dead or in jail now.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting jumping off point. You grew up in the housing projects in Brooklyn. Table tennis was not on your radar, not a big part of your life. Probably it's fair to say the high school student Wally Green would have looked at table tennis with a fair degree of contempt.
That's exactly correct.
So tell us a bit about that upbringing then, because I suspect it's very different from mine or most people's.
Yeah, so I grew up in the projects. My parents really didn't have any money. My mom and dad divorced at, actually, I don't know, because I don't have any picture in my mind of my mom and dad together. So probably before I was one. And she married an abuser, a guy who used to beat her up all the time. And, and it was really tough. It was a crazy life. I spend most of my life trying to figure out how I could kill this guy who's beating up my mom. And I think that's pretty crazy for a kid, from the age of 5 to be thinking about every day of what I could do to get rid of this person. Yeah, and that led me to, gangs and guns at an early age. By 13, I already owned 6 guns. Was gangbanging at 13 in the streets, because that was where my family was. That was where I thought was my family, right? Because those were people that I could always reach out to. Those people I could always talk to, right? Nobody was telling me that I was going to be nothing or that I was going to be dead or in jail for life, even though that was the road that we were all going. But no one was saying that, right? Everyone was just kind of like trying to help each other out, as a team.
Wally, I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a room or to be in the next room and seeing or hearing my mother being struck by my stepfather. Can't imagine. And being almost helpless to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's the hardest part about it, right? It's because, as a boy, you want to help. Like you want to. If you could, you would. But you know, when you're young, you really can't do anything about it. And if you even look like, in my case, if I even look like I was kind of watching what was going on, I got hit. So it wasn't even like, you know, I didn't get nothing from that. If I was looking in the direction, I got hit as well, because it would be like, oh, you want this too, you know. So excuse me, that was one of the reasons why, as a kid, the only thing that was on my mind was trying to kill this guy. I mean, there was a time I remember, I still remember that. I think I was like 7 or 8. And my stepfather used to take some medicine. And, you know, we had some roaches in the house, you know, most projects do. And back then we were using boric acid. It's like a powder that you put on the corner of the floors that the roaches stepping in. I guess it eats their legs or something like that. And I remember like trying to figure out how I could put this boric acid powder into his capsules. And this is like 8 years old. This is what I'm thinking about at 8 years old. You know, at 8 years old, I'm thinking about, you know, if the cloth into the muffler of a car really works, like you see that in movies, right? Like if I put that in the car, will he just like pass out and die in the car? So yeah, so this is the kind of mindset that I had as a kid.
Mm. And was he still around in your teenage years when you had a gun? Because I'm sure you contemplated shooting him.
Say again one more time?
Was he still around in your teenage years when you had guns? Because I'm sure you would have contemplated shooting him.
He never left. Like I don't know, man. My mom just, I don't know. But yeah. Even when I was in gangs, he was still around. Many times. There was one in particular time where I was 14 years old and I got arrested in school for possession of a weapon. And I've had a lot of problems already with the school and some other problems before. But the thing about me was that I had good grades. So it was really weird. It was just weird. And the reason I had good grades was because I was, even at a young age, I was an entrepreneur in my mind, right? So I made sure that I had people doing the work for me, getting the notes for me. Anything that I needed done in school, I had someone doing, because I played sports and I needed to stay on the teams, right? If you don't have good grades, then you get kicked off. And I needed the sport. So I always had people doing stuff for me, right? And as part of doing stuff for me, then they didn't have to have any problems in school with anyone else, right? So, I just lost track of what your question was.
Well, I guess you were saying that he very much did stick around in your teenage years. I'll come back to you and ping pong and table tennis in a moment. How did that situation with your mother and your stepfather finish up? Are they still together? Is he gone?
So let me tell you the most craziest thing that happened with all of that. When I was, as I mentioned before, I was 14 years old. I got arrested in school. The judge, I was looking at 10 years in jail. So I would go from juvenile to adult, which is the worst for any kid. To make that transition from juvenile to adult, you'll ruin your life will be ruined. Like that's it. If you go from like that, because there's so many important years in your childhood that if you miss those years and you're spending those years in a penitentiary, it's going to be very difficult for you to come back into society and be normal. And so my mom told the judge that, I'm a great student, which I was. I had great grades. And they somehow got the judge to agree to send me to Africa for 2 years. So I went there to a boarding school in Africa, all boys boarding school. And I lived there for 2 years. And while I was there, I had a lot of issues there as well. Like, I had a lot of problems there because when I was in Africa, the Africans were saying, you're not the real Black. And so I was fighting a lot there. So I went there and I had more drama, but I didn't have any guns there. I didn't have any knives. It's just a lot of fighting physically. So when I came back at 16. I was supposed to actually go back, but I told my mom, if they send me back, I'll just get off the first stop and I'll never come back again. You'll never see me again. And they decided that I would stay. And so now I was much stronger now, right? From having experience in Africa. And my stepfather was actually grabbing my mom one day, like around her throat, and they were arguing, and I turned around and I looked. And I remember I haven't been home for 2 years, and I looked, right? And my stepfather turned around and said to me, if you look over here one more time, you're gonna get the same thing. But I wasn't that same kid. You understand? That was there before I left. I became a totally different person. And I just lost it. Like I just lost it. Like all I remember is I came back in the house with a gun. I don't even remember how I got out of the house. I know I went to my friend's house to get it because that's where we used to keep it. But I came back in with a gun, and I was gonna shoot my stepfather that day. And I was shaking, and I was, I was all these emotions going through my mind. And as I put the gun to his face, and I said that, you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm gonna end it right now. And then my mom was screaming and yelling, and then my mom calls the police and says, you guys need to hurry. My son's trying to kill my husband. And then I pointed the gun to my mom as well. And I was about to kill my parents at that point. But, I've always been a smart kid. I've always been smart. And something came, I always talk about this, something came and sat on my shoulder, and all this craziness said to me, hey, if you do this right now, everything your stepfather said will happen right now. My stepfather told me as a kid, every day, oh, you're going to be dead or in jail. You're worthless. You're worthless. You're going to be dead or in jail. You're going to be dead or in jail. And this is what I heard every day. And so something told me that if you do this right now, this is what's going to happen. Whatever he said, everything he said is going to come true. And then I just came to my senses and I said, you guys deserve each other, and left home and never went back.
Oh. Has there been any reconciliation?
No, so I found out maybe 2 years ago from one of my uncles, because I don't talk to my family. I don't talk to anyone. Actually, when my dad, when my dad died, I don't talk to his family, right? Because I got a lot of hate from his wife, right? And I don't talk to that family. So when my dad passed, I don't talk to that family. Then my mom and my stepfather, they've always been together. And then 2 years ago, my uncles, my mom's brother, I don't talk to her side of the family also. He randomly called me, and then his words were, I don't know if we can curse here.
Sure.
But that piece of shit is dead. And that was the first time I spoke to my uncle in years, right? Because growing up with this abuse, I always remember my uncles would come by and my mom would not let them in. Like, my stepfather was a narcissist, right? And I didn't realize that until now that I'm older and understanding what narcissists do. My stepfather alienated my mom from her family, right? Because I remember being home and I would say to my mom, hey, how come, Uncle blah, blah, blah won't come over? How come Grandma won't come over? How come, and I noticed that people were never coming over my house, right? And then as I got older, and this is recently that I learned about, this is like, I want to say maybe sort of early post-pandemic, maybe like I just started learning about this, that the narcissist will alienate the family, the person away from the family. And that's what he was doing.
And in the interim, have you reached out to your mum?
So the problem with that is that I've tried to have a conversation, a thing, but like my mom, she doesn't, what's the word? She won't acknowledge. And that just makes me insanely crazy when someone is not acknowledging what they've done. And for her, it's just kind of like, well, whatever. No, it's not whatever. That's not whatever. It's not whatever. Because let's just say that day, right? Let's say I stayed a little bit longer and I didn't leave right away. What would have happened to me? I would have been arrested, right? I would have been caught with an illegal weapon in my house, right? What about all the other crazy shit I already did? I just came back from getting off of not going, like my life would have been ruined because you decided you wanted to call the police on your son for helping you, right? So the fact that she doesn't acknowledge these things, I just can't, I don't talk to her at all, like zero. I don't, and I think for me, I think most important thing is your own mental health. And I think a lot of people, they sacrifice their mental health on the basis that, oh, it's a family member, I have to do this. No, it's not. It's not. The most important person is you. So if I want to keep my mental health sane, I need to stay away from that. And so that's what I do now.
And just one very quick point. You can explain this to me in a line, Ewan.
Yeah.
Why Africa? That seems like a slightly random place to send a kid.
Yeah. Well, so because my mom had some friends who were from Africa, and they kept saying if you send him there, they're gonna get his ass straight. And they did. And let me tell you, they did get my ass straight. They did for sure. It was different, because in Africa, in schools, like you get beat. Like it's not a joke. You get beat. Right. Every professor or teacher, whatever you want to call it, walks around with a stick. And if someone's in a higher grade than you, so a person who's in a higher grade than you can actually beat you. So that's how the culture is. It goes by respect. If I'm 1 minute older than you, you can't call me by my name. You have to call me brother. So it was a total 360-degree, going from a kid who had no respect to a kid who was forced to have respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, look, you've painted a horribly vivid picture there of why gang culture would have been very seductive. And we're talking shoplifting and weapons possession and carjacking. And I think, you're there when a friend of yours is shot and you're shot at twice, I think, grazed by bullets. You're on a pretty bad path here. It's fairly obvious to say, while still being good in high school and playing sport in high school. So table tennis comes along in a fairly unexpected way. If anything, it seems you're at a pool hall and there's some, nerdy kids playing table tennis, and you're angry about something, you kind of barge over there, you say, get out of the way, give me a go of this. And you hit a shot and they think it's actually quite a good shot. And they're telling you should check out the Midtown Manhattan 50th Street ping pong hall. And it's kind of like that kind of a moment for you, ping pong. What age are you when you first venture down to Midtown Manhattan?
That was probably 17.
Okay. And are you still very angry at 17, 18? You're not in a good place?
Well, that shot wasn't a shot. That shot was an attempt to hit the kid with the ball because I was angry that I broke my pool stick.
Okay.
But it just so happened that it went on the table and they were like, that's a great shot, not knowing that I was trying to be a bully. That's what that was about.
And when you rock up at Midtown Manhattan and see this ping pong hall, it's kind of interesting that you decided to go. I mean, you could have easily said, I'm not going to play ping pong. But obviously there was some attraction to you with the sport. Maybe some part of you thought, well, I might be interested in this sport.
Well, because I was an athlete, and sports was the other half of me staying sane through all the craziness I was going through. The first was being part of my gang and hanging out with my gang members. And the second, which I think I even enjoyed more, was sports. Sports was a way that numbed me to what was going on. If I played sports, right, you get up early in the morning, go to school, you got to practice. Then after school, you're school late, you practice. You're so tired. By the time you get home, it's just noise. It's just, here and out. So I noticed that whenever I played sports, a lot of my aggression went out in sports. And then I was a little bit less violent when I was hanging out with my gang members, right? Because I was tired, I was training, and a lot of my aggression came out in sports. So I loved sports, like any sport. If I could, I joined every sport in my school, every single one, except track, because I thought it was too much work. So I didn't join track.
And ping pong.
But I joined every sport, and they had ping pong, by the way. Check this out. They had ping pong in my school. They had it in the lunchroom. I remember I was playing football. We used to cut through the lunchroom to go to the field, and there would be kids playing ping pong, and I would make fun of them all the time. I'd be like, look at these kids with their short shorts and a stick, right? Because they all had these little shorts on, and I would call the ping pong paddle a stick. And I used to make fun of these kids so hard. So I hope they never see any
You
of
sound
this
like
stuff.
a real nice guy around then.
Oh my God, I just start remembering. I actually didn't. I hated the sport, completely.
So when you turn up at Manhattan to see this ping pong hall, and you're seeing, I'm presuming, some pretty nifty players.
Yeah.
Your eyes are lighting up?
Yes. And I think my eyes were lighting up, not so much because of the sport, because people like me were playing. So there were people from, Jamaica, people from the islands. So there were Black people playing. And for me, I didn't think Black people played ping pong. I thought only Asians played ping pong, right? So that was a shocking thing. Like, what? And then they were playing amazing. They were hitting the ball, hard, standing far from the table, making noises, going, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
It's athletic.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, whoa, and then that was the immediate thing that drew me to the sport. I think if I went in there and I saw Asian kids playing, I would have definitely not played the sport. So no matter what they were doing.
You turned professional in 2001. Yeah. Talk to me how you go from prejudice against this sport to turning up at this hall in Manhattan to becoming a professional, because that's a leap. In most sports, if you're only starting at 17, 18, you're not turning professional.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said before, I'm super talented at sports. Any sport, doesn't matter what it is because, like I said, it was part of my life, and it was a way that I dealt with a lot of the stuff going on in my house. So I pick up sports really, really quickly. Okay. And I started to get interested at that pool hall. And so I would play and first of all, most people wouldn't even play with me, right? Because it's very cliquey. And I met this older guy who was I think at the time he was 70. And he would just smoke me 21 to 4 or 3. Mm-hmm. And I'd be and I'm an athlete. I play sports, real sports. And this old guy's beating me. And I think that made me even want it more. I was like, there's no way this old guy can beat me. He's 70 years old. I play football, basketball. How can I lose to some guy like this? So I'm very, very, very competitive. Very competitive. I can't lose. And if I lose, I got to keep doing it until I beat you. And so that made me want to play more. And then one day I was just hanging out. None of the good players would play with me. And this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, do you have a partner? And I was like, no, I just come and hang out with Simon and play with this old guy sometimes. And the guy says, well, I'll pay you $20 if you come, if you play with me 2 or 3 times a week. And I was like, what? $20? Real? 20? Yeah. And he goes, and he goes, yeah. I said, okay, let's do it. I mean, I sucked, but I could hit. And I could hit forehands. I could hit backhands. And I would play with this guy, and then we would play, and we would talk. And I always spoke about, the things I was going through. I was always open. I was the kind of kid, I didn't care. I tell you what I wanted, how I wanted, when I wanted. And for him, it was more like a TV show, right? Because if you never met anyone or know anyone who lived this life, it's TV. It's not real. There's no way kids walking around with guns. It's gang, what's that? And then one day I went to the club, a gun fell out of my bag, a 22 caliber, and he saw it. And his eyes, I still remember in his face because it was a look that the whole pieces of this puzzle just came together at one time. And I didn't want to stay around to see what he was going to think about it. I don't know if he's going to call police or whatever. So I left. And the first thing I thought about was, well, there goes my $20. That's it. It's gone. But the guy called me the next day and said, are we still playing? And I was like, okay, yeah, all right. So I go to meet him and he says, I want to invite you to my house. I have a house near Hunter Mountain, which is 2.5 hours away from New York City. And I'm like, why is this guy inviting me to his house after just seeing, a weapon fall in my bag? Like it's crazy. And I agreed because I was still thinking about my $20 hustle. Sure. And I go up there with him and I meet his family, very nice family. They have a ping pong table in like a sport room kind of thing. And I play with them. And I think, now when I look back at it, I think it was him trying to show me what family is, like what real family, because he knew I told him about my family. So he was showing me what family, like they ate together, they did things together. And then he says, hey, I want to help you. And I said, how? He goes, I want to pay for you to go to Germany to learn ping pong. And I was like, what? Germany? The only thing I knew about Germany was Hitler. And I'm like, why is this guy trying to send me to Germany? Yeah. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to pay for you. I have a connection in Germany and I'll pay for you to go. And I was like, okay. Right. And it still didn't hit me until I was actually on the flight going to Germany to learn. And
Who the hell is this guy? Well,
man, a lot of people say he was my angel.
Yeah.
Because it's so random, right? And there were, like I said, there were things that happened where this relationship should have not happened, right? Yeah. If you see a kid drop a gun in front of you, you don't tell the kid, yo, come to my house. So yeah, but yeah.
Are you still in touch occasionally, or?
No, so we did a documentary actually where we were actually looking for him for a long time. So I hadn't spoken to him for a very, very long time. Like many years ago, I think Israel had a war and then we lost contact. And I haven't spoken to him for many years. And then we were trying to find him for this film. And I can't even remember his name at the time.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor.